Yeah, okay. Yeah. We can let people know those repairs. Yeah. We've got a few minutes before 7 o'clock, but it's just to let councillors know and members in the gallery that we've got no prayers this evening. Welcome members to the meeting. Welcome those members of the public and press who have joined us this evening by YouTube. We are hosting a live stream of our proceedings this evening. Welcome guests from the Local Government Association who have joined us to present the outcome of the Corporate Peer Challenge. If you want to, I'm going to invite members to remove their jackets if need be, please. Good evening, members. Before we begin, I need to go over the usual housekeeping rules. There are no fire drills planned for this evening, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building by the nearest exit and assemble in the Queen's Garden at the front of the building. Please do not re-enter the building until you're advised to do so. I'd like to remind members of protocols around speaking during the meeting. No member should speak until invited to do so by myself. If you wish to speak, please could I ask you to raise your hand high until you've been acknowledged. Please would all members in the room use their microphones whenever they speak to us. Without them, anyone watching online will not be able to hear you. To use your microphone, please press the button in front of the centre when invited to speak and wait a moment for the light on your microphone to come on. Please remember to turn off your microphone once you have finished. Please could I ask at the end of the meeting to make sure that you take all your belongings and waste with you. Thank you. Before we begin, I have been aware that Steph Talbot has stood down as councillor for the Nutton ward, and Sue Moffat, who has stood down as councillor for the Audley ward. On behalf of members, I wish them both well for the future. Also, Councillor Susan Beeston will be taking a brief leave of absence due to the close family bereavement and ill health. I'm sure that members will join me in wishing her well. We will now commence with the business this evening. Turning to the agenda, now members, and starting with agenda item 1, I have apologies from Councillor Susan Beeston, Dave Jones. Do we have any further apologies, please?
Councillor Dave Allport.
Thank you. Councillor Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Ian Wilkes, Councillor Gary White, and Councillor Jill Waring.
Thank you. Any more? Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. The next agenda item is item 2, declarations of interest. Are there declarations of interest from any members or officers in relation to items of business contained with this agenda? No. Agenda item 3, members, is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of May and the 28th of June 2023. You will find those minutes on pages 5 to 14 of your agenda. Can both sets of minutes please be agreed? Thank you. Mayor's announcements. Members, tickets will shortly be available for my charity ball Halloween with a twist of glitz and glam being held on Saturday, the 21st of October at Keele Hall. There are only a few tickets left to you, so if you wish to attend, please speak to myself or my secretary as soon as possible. But I do apologise because this is an ad lib. We've already actually sold out of 370 tickets. So if you would like to be on the reserves list, you're more than welcome to. Members, we now turn to the first substantive item of business of the evening agenda, which is the appointment of an interim monitoring officer. A copy of the report and associated papers can be found on pages 15 to 17 of your agenda. Councillor Simon Tagg, would you please now introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. First of all, I'd just like to welcome, obviously, our nominee for this position of interim monitoring officer, Barbara Beardwell, to the council. And just like to say a couple of words about, obviously, our former monitoring officer and head of legal and governance, Dan Dickinson, who's left us to join another council. Best of luck to him as he starts his new career. And we did allow him to leave slightly early so he could take up that position in the combined authority. I think it's in the east of England. So that leaves us with obviously having to appoint a new monitoring officer and head of legal and governance. We started that process already, but in the meantime, so we can have the due governance and controls within the council, we need to appoint an interim monitoring officer. And as I said earlier, I'm proposing Barbara. And Barbara has worked extensive experience across local government, working for Hampshire County Council, working for also Herefordshire County Council in roles of head of legal and governance, also as a monitoring officer as well. So I think stands us in good stead in that interim period while we are looking to appoint our permanent replacement for our former head of legal and governance and monitoring officer. I move then, in accordance with 5A of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989, Council will be asked to confirm the appointment of Barbara Beardwell as the Council's interim monitoring officer. I so move, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Sweeney, would you like to second the motion, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I met Barbara today and welcomed her to Newcastle. And I hope she has an enjoyable time when she's here. I'm very happy to second that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Members, we now move to the debate on this item. Can I ask you to indicate by raising a hand if you wish to speak? Yep. Are we voting? So, Yeah, definitely. Of course. Yeah. Could we ask members to raise their hands, please, to vote? All in favour? Can you raise your hands high, please? Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Members, the motion is carried and in favour. Congratulations, Barbara. Give you a round of applause. Members, the next substantive item of business on this evening's agenda is the receipt of a petition asking council to review its targets for the new housing in the borough. A copy of the report and associated papers can be found on pages 19 to 25 of your agenda. I shall follow the procedure laid down in the council's petition scheme as follows. The petition organiser will be given 5 minutes to present the petition. Councillors will discuss the petition for a maximum of 15 minutes. Council will decide how to respond to the petition. I believe that Mr. Craig Hancock would like to speak for 5 minutes as the organiser for the petition. Mr. Hancock, would you like to come forward and give your presentation, please? Sorry if I...
Hello. There we go. We can all hear me now. Does my 5 minutes start now? Okay. So yeah, morning everyone. I'm from PAPG, and we just wanted to go through the reasons that we've done the petition, and just mainly think we don't want everyone to think we're sort of a NIMBY group. We've actually thought about it. There's reasons that we've gone into it. So I'm going to go through before the bullet points and then let you guys discuss it. So we just want to express sort of the disappointment and frustration that our petition wasn't received by the full council at the April meeting. We really wanted to get it pushed through for there, and that was despite the petition did reach the required 1,500 signatories. And at our request to submit it, the 13 clear days before the agenda was posted, it still didn't actually get discussed during that. So we really hoped it'd be discussed before this meeting. And also we wanted to make sure that it's worth noting that the petition has not only been signed by residents in Audley itself, but we've got residents and some people who are here today from Loggerheads in the west. We've got Malcop, which is off to the east, and areas in between. We've got people from Kidsgrove, and also a number of support from other parish councils, which is the Audley Rural, Keele and Madeley. And we just really wanted to make sure that you're aware that it's not us being NIMBYs. We've got various other people from all over the place that are supporting us. And we also want to reassure the members that we're not anti-building NIMBYs. We don't want no change at all. We know change has got to come. But we just believe that it's the right type of housing, the right numbers and in the right places. So we're not anti-build, we're pro-build, but we want the right things to be built. We're also committed to the principles of the Better Building Planning Coalition, a coalition of the sort of numerous institutions, including the Chartered Institute of Housing, Shelter, National Association of Local Councils, the National Trust, the RSPB and the Wildlife Trusts. This petition is not intended to stop the creation of the local plan, but it's just intended to ensure that it's in line with the best practice with community-led planning. We want it community-focused and that it takes account of the residents' wishes, obviously some of who are here today, and the latest evidence such as the population figures and the changing national policies that are on the planning itself. The Secretary of State's announcements and the consultation that was earlier this year and his announcements, which was this Monday, I believe, that offered everyone the opportunity to strike the right balance to get the local plan right the first time, which I'm assuming you guys would want as well, because it'd make your lives easier. We also know that housing demand massively outstrips the housing supply, say in somewhere like London. in the south, but the need is different in this area. And we hope that the local plan should reflect that difference. Obviously, we've got a need for, say, smaller housing, elderly people that live in bigger houses that want to go to smaller houses. It's downsizing, bungalows, the affordable housing and social housing, all of which developers have failed to provide for adequately in this area. And I think quite a few residents have been noting to say that they just don't feel that they understand if the right housing is being built. We also want the local plan to be a genuinely community-led, green and regenerative local plan. It's easy to say. It's not a charter for developers to build yet more expensive executive homes in the area. They aren't the easiest to build and they are the most profitable for them. We want to know how many applications that the Borough Council has passed with the conditions that are watered down or even removed that developers can play the "it's not a viable" card. With the Secretary of State confirming on Monday that the national formula for calculating housing needs is only a starting point and that the figure can be reduced if there's good reason to, we're hoping that through you guys, it can be reduced and that there is a good reason because a realistic calculation of the needs, sort of using this, a flexibility stated in the paragraph 61 of the NPPF. We're hoping that the council can take into account the local circumstances, including things like the falling population of the borough. There's a 0.5% drop from 2011 to 2021. So we're thinking that suggests it's a lower household forecast. And the constraint that a large percentage of the borough's rural area is in the green belt, which for Audley is approximately 50%, if we've got that right.
1 minute, Mr. Hancock.
The number of new dwellings built in the borough is in excess of the targets the previous years. It's 32% over the target from 2018 to 2019, and obviously 20 to 21, an excess in the neighbouring authorities. We've got people from all over, Kidsgrove, Golden Hill, although it's technically in Stoke, people from Audley. It's the new bills such as the Baldwins Gate and Loggerheads. And we want to take in fact that all the new house building has exceeded the increase in households over the past years. The local plan should also place greater emphasis on developing brownfield sites at higher densities, reusing vacant town centre buildings and tackling the waste of resources that's a long-term empty houses. We don't want buildings on good quality, carbon soaking agricultural land that forms the beautiful countryside that we all love and enjoy. And finally, there is time to review the housing figures as the borough's timetable has milestones that are a year earlier than the statutory deadlines. We just hope that there's no reason that the residents should be suffering from a rushed local plan if that's what has happened, because the council has been looking at the abandoned joint plan. So we just kind of, it's making sure that you're not aware, obviously, just to recap, that we're not NIMBYs. We have looked into it. There's a lot of statistics we've got behind it, and we've tried our best to read all the documents that have been given. And obviously, I hope that you appreciate that they are very big for all of us who aren't in your area and can't read them the way you guys can. Hopefully that's just 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Hancock. You might return to your seat. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I will now allow a maximum of 15 minutes to debate the item. Councillor Andrew Fear, would you like to open the debate and move the recommendations, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I am happy to move the recommendations as printed on our sheet this evening. And as I do so, I think I'll take an opportunity to hopefully squash one room, which I know has been going around the internet recently, which is that petitions cannot be submitted as a consultation response. Manifestly, recommendation 1 this evening shows that that is not the case. And again, a little bit of stuff going around, much less this time actually than in the previous consultation. But again, just to reassure people that if they don't wish to use the portal, they can email comments to the planning department here. They can equally write with old-fashioned pen and paper, and all of those things will be absolutely accepted. Now, what we've got to remember, of course, is that at one level, this is not, in fact, something that we will sit and judge on in the end. Any form of local plan will go forward to an independent inspector at the end of the process. And that inspector, of course, will check that the plan has been formed in terms of national legislation. We can't go against national legislation. And paragraph 61 of the NPPF insists that when we calculate housing need, we do so by the standard method as set out there. That standard method includes things like housing demand. Indeed, it insists that the correct way of doing this is to use the 2014 household projections. We have no choice in that. However, the experts brought in by the council, Turleys, and indeed I have used later data when they have felt that they can do so in a safe and correct manner. So that has been covered. In the same way, we can see that looking at the national legislation, there are no very exceptional circumstances to deviate from this. That is the view of our officers who have worked very hard on this. It is also the view of our external consultants and indeed from more than one external expert in that regard. If we fail to do that, of course, we will be in a great deal of trouble. Sadly, the council lost a planning appeal this last week or so around Logheads area. The inspector's report in that appeal, and I commend members to read that report, shows very clearly that if you fall beneath a demonstrated rolling 5-year land supply as calculated by the standard method, pretty much any form of defence against development will in fact fail. Paragraph 11D of the MPPF will come into play, and that will be a presumption in favour of what the document is pleased to call sustainable development. So it is very, very important to get this right. Now, this week, Mr. Gove, as has been mentioned, made a long statement about planning. Absent from that statement was any notion that planning quotas would be removed. Actually, some of the things he said back up, in my opinion, what the draft local plan is trying to do. Mr. Gove insisted that you should look for brownfield sites before any other form of sites. That is what this council has done. We have had a call for brownfield sites. And now, if anyone out there is an owner of a brownfield site, we want to hear from you. If anyone out there can suggest a brownfield site for development that we haven't covered, we want to hear from you. But the council has always, from the very beginning, placed development on brownfield as its absolute priority. Also, it's interesting, I think, that Mr. Gove pointed out that development should take place in areas designated for development in a local plan. In other words, what he has done is pointed out that an up-to-date local plan provides a robust defence of any area. That development will happen where local people want it to happen. And once again, I'm afraid, if we do not have the demonstrable 5-year housing supplier, that will no longer be the case. Therefore, the local plan is the best way, an up-to-date local plan is the best way we can control development and have it where we want to have it in our borough. It's also, I think, important to think about alternatives in all of this. The Labour Party's leader, Sir Keir Starmer, is on record more than once of saying that if the current government removes any housing quotas, they will be put back again. At the local government conference recently, leaflets appeared. And I think this is a branded Labour Party leaflet, which says Labour will build homes, Tories won't. If you look on the BBC, I don't think anyone could say the BBC was a bastion of right-wing disinformation, but on the 17th of May, there's a little report here about Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer has said that Labour would give the English councils more power to build on greenbelt land to boost housing. The Labour leader told the BBC he was prepared to take tough decisions and, quote, back the builders, not the blockers. So perhaps it will be interesting to see what the opposition have to say in response to this item this evening. Do they back Sir Keir Starmer? It'll be nice to know.
1 minute, Councillor Thea.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Coming on to that sort of thing, let's close with some thoughts about St. Augustine. St. Augustine, in his confession, said as a young man, he used to pray to God, quote, to make me pure, but not just yet. Unfortunately, an awful lot of the opposition to local plans, it seems to me, follows in the young St. Augustine's footsteps. We're always told we want a local plan, but not just yet. And I'm afraid by doing that, we are placing the green spaces of this borough in danger. We will not have a demonstrated rolling 5-year land supply.
Thank you, Councillor Fear.
That will bring people into danger.
Thank you, Councillor Fear.
Grow up. Be like the older St. Augustine, not the younger.
Fear, thank you. Councillor Holland, would you like to second the recommendation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure I can follow up. I've got no St. Augustine content or Keir Starmer, but I'll try to be brief so that other members can get in. It's a pleasure to second the recommendations that are printed on the report tonight. I very much welcome the petition, and the signatories deserve to have it considered in detail as part of the local plan consultation and also by the appropriate scrutiny committee. Our petition's protocol, which we've heard tonight, it doesn't let us give this matter a full hearing. So to be clear, if we don't send this, we don't vote to send it to scrutiny, it's not going anywhere fast. It needs to be forwarded on, and it needs to be included as a consultation response. And I think that's the hearing that this petition deserves. I know the portfolio holder's given a flavour of what the future process is likely to be once this has been reflected on, but the whole point of the draft local plan consultation is that it is a consultation, and compelling arguments are surely welcome at any stage. Now, I'm a member who in the future, perhaps later on in this meeting, might be appointed to that scrutiny committee, so I might have a personal chance to expand at length on it. But if I may touch briefly on a couple of points that are included in the text of the petition. I think first, as has been publicised, the government minister, Michael Gove, has certainly floated the notion of greater flexibility for local government in determining housing need, but that offer has not yet made it into regulation or statutory guidance, which means that councils can't, I'm afraid, as the portfolio holder has indicated, rely on it as a basis for plan making. Now, councillors and members of the public will also know that in his more recent speech this week, Mr. Gove's made announcements that will receive a mixed reception, I think, from many of us. A new, stronger emphasis on brownfield building and in development within urban areas. Very welcome. A tech-focused new town at Cambridge and potentially more new towns to come after that, perhaps less so. Now, I'm a passionate advocate for getting the local plan process done under whatever rules the government happens to put in place. We should jump through the hoops. We should do it, whatever the rules happen to be, because I know that until we do, all of our green spaces are at risk. Every one of them, as we've learned very recently from the planning inspectorate decision that the portfolio holder referred to in loggerheads.
1 minute, Councillor Holland.
Thank you very much. Okay, the other thing I was going to mention, the one statistic that I will pick at will be that 0.5% drop in the borough's population, because it may be a statistical ghost. It may be that one snapshot was taken when university term was in and one when it was out. But if it's not, it says something very worrying. It should be a warning to us and not an excuse to cut down on our potential targets, because we should be thinking twice before making decisions that will result in a shrinking borough. So I hope we can work together. I hope we can work together on the local plan process. I commend what I put down, what Councillor Fear has suggested, because it will enable us to have a better debate at a later time.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Members, we now move on to the debate on this item. Can I ask you to indicate by raising a hand if you wish to speak? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I thought this was a debate about the residents' concerns, not political division. It's really sad that we read that. And at that point, I just don't understand or support the recommendation too. That petition, as you said, that's scrutiny. The Constitution and custom dictates when a petition reaches the required number of signatures, it is required to debate it at full council. The administration demonstrates that it is earned when it comes to genuine concerns from the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Fox-Hewitt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Fear for his politically motivated oration there. I wasn't going to speak on this because I was more interested in listening to the near 2,000 signatories from the community of Audley that have come here tonight to present it. But what I would just say is I think this administration is being fundamentally disingenuous with their purported love tonight for green spaces, because we know that to fund their astronomical borrowing of near £30 million, it's going to require the sale of Keele Golf Course to finance that debt. And I think we should be clear with residents and the community from this meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Boxer It. Councillor Gorton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to speak on the report rather than the petition. And I want to begin by actually stressing that I have no connection with the organisers of the petition, and I haven't in fact signed it. My query, I think, is with the parts of the report that are set out in paragraphs 2.4 to 2.10, which I see as a rebuttal. And the rebuttal is described in paragraph 2.3 as brief. Well, something which takes 5 paragraphs to explain can't really be described as brief. Anyway, that's a minor point. My objection to paragraphs 2.4 to 2.10 is that this section really doesn't add anything to the case for the recommendation, and in my view is heavy-handed and premature. Surely this section should have been written as part of analysis of the responses to the consultation exercise after the exercise has been completed, not during the consultation itself. I think the rebuttal is premature. I don't think it should be included in the report. And actually, I would be quite happy to move that it be deleted from the report because I think it adds nothing to the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Gorton. Councillor Holland, do you second it? Is that agreed?
I don't think we can agree to that. I'm
No, on your motion when you
I'm happy for
originally
the
spoke.
report to go through as possible. If they're moving it as an amendment, we can go to a vote on that. I mean, it is eating into the time that we should be using to debate the motion.
See if anybody else wants to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Does anyone want to speak on the amendment, please? Nope. Okay, let's take it to the vote for the amendment, please. All those in favour? Can you put your hands high, please, so I can see? Thank you. All those against?
So it's 14 for and 22 against.
Okay. So that's 14 for and 22 against. Thank you. Right, now we're motoring the motion.
Now you go.
Speak on the petition, please. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's been an interesting conversation and debate. First of all, I'd like to thank the petitioner for obviously bringing the petition to us tonight. I think the conversation early on about should this have come to the April meeting, I think there are processes the council has to go through to verify, and then a certain more number of petition signatures came in after the date when it could have come to that meeting. So this is the first available meeting. And actually it's the right meeting, I think, when we're right in the middle of the local plan consultation. I think it's really important that we hear all views. And of course, this will, with the recommendations, which we're going to vote on them, and it will enable that to happen. And I think let's not just forget, it's not just the Economic and Place Scrutiny Committee that would be considering this, but also Cabinet in the future as well. So I think it will have an airing where it's appropriate to have an airing. But I think I'm not going to repeat the things that Councillor Fear or Councillor Holland has said from our side. I think it is really important that we have a local plan. We're already behind schedule on this local plan, which we started in 2020. We haven't had a local plan on this, a local plan in this council since before 2012, if not well before that. And we have seen, and I have sat on planning committee many times when applications have come in areas such as Baldwin's Gate and Logheads. I'm really quite surprised that people from Baldwin's Gate and Logheads want to stop the process, which this petition really wants to do. Because they are open to speculative development, and we've just seen it in Baldwin's Gate again, haven't we, with the overturning of the council's decision by the inspector. So it's really important that we do get a local plan in place, and I think the process we put in place at the moment, this consultation is the longest consultation this council has ever done. It's the most thorough. It's the most public events we've ever done, and that's on the back of the last consultation we did for the local plan, which was the most thorough that we'd ever done. I think just to reassure people that as we go forward on this, I know that we can't make, everybody's not going to be happy with a local plan. But what we need to do as councillors and as councillors for the whole borough is ensure we have a borough plan which protects green spaces. I think Councillor Fox-Hewitt talked about putting green spaces under threat. Well, this administration has protected 60 green spaces. Some of those, many of those, the vast majority of those, which were under threat and were included in previous stages of the local plan for sites, council-owned sites. And our officers have a real good team of officers that are working on this local plan. And I think, you know, we can trust in them that they will bring forward a plan which will be sound when it goes to the inspector and will protect this borough for 20 years. Not everybody will win from it, but the vast majority of people in the borough will win from it. And I think, just to echoing finally, Mr. Mayor, what Councillor Holland said, about that people actually do want new homes in this borough. They want the opportunity for their children to live in the borough and for people to come in and work in the borough. We have a growth zone of business in Keele University Science Park. We want those people to live in Newcastle, use our town centre, and also be, you know, pay taxes to the borough so we can improve services even further. I think it's a bit, you know, rich of Councillor Fox-Hewitt to then say we're looking to spend all of this money on our grandiose plans for the borough and our town. This is really important, the regeneration of our town is, and we must achieve that for the betterment of the borough, and the local plan will help us to do that, and we'll try and carry everybody along with us and as much as we can. But unfortunately, some people will not be happy at the end of it, as it always is with these plans. But I again thank the petition for its use, and it will not go on deaf ears, and it will go through the correct process if we agree these recommendations, which I now move.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Can we put the proposal to the vote, please? All those in favour? All those against? Councillor Holland, can you put your hands up again, please? Thank you. Yeah, we've got 14 against and 22 for. So the motion is now carried. Thank you. Members, we now turn for the next substantive item of business on this evening's agenda, which is the Corporate Peer Challenge Outcome and Action Plan. A copy of the report can be associated and papers can be found on pages 27 to 56 of your agenda. Before I invite colleagues from the LGA to present their report, I will invite Councillor Simon Tagg to introduce this item, please. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know whether people wish to stay or leave. I'm not sure. Are you going to stay? As we could.
Just bear with me. If you'd like to, anybody like to leave, they may leave now. Martin. Oh, goodness. See that. Thank you, members of the gallery. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Fox-Hewitt, Councillor Stubbs, it's not a meeting place. Thank you, members. No, we shouldn't be talking to the resident when we're having a full council meeting, so be quiet. Dear me. Councillor Tagg, you may carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm really pleased to, first of all, introduce our part of the peer review team who was the lead member peer, Peter Fleming, who's here tonight, and also Helen Murray, who's the LGA principal advisor, who I believe are going to take us through the report, which has already been through cabinet, and we've already talked about it at previous councils in a very minor way. But I think tonight we have a chance to look at what is a really good report for this council, I think, and I'll hand over to back to you, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, to hand over to Peter and Helen.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. I understand that Councillor Sweeney will second the motion proposed by Councillor Tagg. Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, I'm very happy to second that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will now invite Mr. Peter Fleming and Miss Helen Murray to present their report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for inviting us today to talk about the Council's Corporate Peer Challenge. I am Helen Murray, the LGA's Principal Advisor for the West Midlands, and it's my absolute pleasure and privilege to work with all 33 councils across the region. Although I was not a member of the peer team, I've worked with Newcastle-under-Lyme for a good number of years now, and I was pleased to be able to help with the planning of the review and to hear the feedback on site at the end of the Corporate Peer Challenge in March.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members. My name is Peter Fleming. I'm the former leader at Sevenoaks District Council down in Kent, and I was part of the team that came to Newcastle. As Google reminds me almost every day, because for some reason it still thinks I'm in Newcastle-under-Lyme and gives me the headlines from your local newspaper. So I've been following with interest since March the various particularly celebrations for your 850 years.
So I'm sure many of you will be familiar with the peer challenge process, either because you met the peer team when they were here on site, or obviously you've read the report ahead of tonight's meeting. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Corporate Peer Challenge continues to be a really effective tool for helping local councils. Our recent annual report demonstrated this with 100%, a full 100% of people said that they would recommend it to other councils. And we hope this is true for Newcastle-under-Lyme Borough Council too. And just a couple of weeks ago, some of you may have noticed that the government published some draft best value guidance. And in that, it recommends that all councils have a peer challenge every 5 years. Of course, it's not an inspection. It's an opportunity to hold the mirror up, to showcase what you're doing well and areas for improvement. And what Peter and I would like to do this evening is pick out some of the key findings and to highlight the next steps. But just as a reminder, a quick word about what a peer challenge is. It contains 5 core themes, which are seen as critical to council's performance. If you like, they're hallmarks of effective practice. And those 5 themes were explored by the team. Number 1, local priorities and outcomes. Number 2, organisational and place leadership. 3, governance and culture. 4, one of the most critical ones at the moment, financial planning and management. And 5, capacity for improvement. We were here in Newcastle-under-Lyme at the end of March, but ahead of that, the team were kindly provided with a lot of reading material from the council, a position statement and some key documents and some key strategies. The peer team was led by Larissa Reid on the officer side, a chief executive of Swale Borough Council, and Peter on the political side, and included a team of people from across local government who could bring their expertise and share whilst in Newcastle. Thanks to a full timetable across the 3 days, the team had over 40 meetings and spoke to more than 100 people. So we felt we had a really good conversation with lots of people to get to know the council well. We're always grateful for officers' time and members' time for being so generous and sharing their thoughts and reflections with the peer team. At the end of the time here in Newcastle, the team provided headline feedback to the council, which has been circulated with this agenda item. And you also have the formal written response, which provides more evidence and more detail on those headlines. And Peter is now just going to talk about some of those highlights.
Thank you, Helen. As Helen said, you've all had opportunity to see the headline report, but there are a few items that I want to pick up, and I think it is important, particularly in the context of local government as a whole and where local government is at the moment. It won't have you won't have missed the recent news about a number of councils who are in significant difficulty, and so it'll be helpful if I perhaps highlight some of the really good practice and some of the areas that we looked at. And then Helen, I think, will then go into some of our recommendations and the action plan that you've put together with those. I think the first thing that I wanted to pick out was around the ambition for Newcastle-under-Lyme as a place. And I think we heard that both internally from officers and members, but we also heard it from your partners and residents. Part of a corporate peer challenge is not just spending time in the building. We spend time out and about and have conversations that are perhaps not scripted, not part of the process, but in cafes, in shops, as we're walking up and down streets. So it was interesting to hear that. And I think again, to reference back the fact that 2023 is an important year in the history of the borough, that was important to see where you were and also where you were going. You've had some specific challenges over the last few years, particularly the Wallace Quarry issue. And I think the way that the council has managed to deal with that over an extended period of time and bring a national spotlight on what it has been a significant issue for that community and those residents has been really important. The council's transformation programme, looking internally, the One Council, is a really important way of delivering a council that's fit for the future. And as I said earlier, there are stresses and strains across local government that are being seen. There are lots of opportunities, but also lots of challenges coming, and making sure that the council is in the best possible place to face those challenges is really important. The two areas that I really wanted to pick up on, though, one was the vulnerability hub. And I think all of us come from communities that are or have seen struggles, whether that has been during the pandemic or coming out of the pandemic, into the cost of living. And I think everyone that was on the team saw the vulnerability hub as real best practice and something that we've taken away that perhaps can be replicated in other places. It was really something quite special when we spoke particularly to partners and also those that have benefited from it. And the second area that I wanted to pick out was the financial leadership and overall financial management. One of the areas that councils are particularly struggling with at the moment is controlling costs and making sure that they are in a strong financial position, not just now, but looking forward into the future. I'm not a financial genius, but we did have finance teams, finance experts on our team who did a really deep dive into the council finances and got a better understanding of where you are and where you're set for the future. So that was kind of the areas that I wanted to pick up, but I'm happy to talk about other parts of the report if members have any questions.
Thank you, Peter. And just over to me for the recommendations, really. And what I would like, I'm quite often asked, how do we compare with other councils? And that's a really difficult one because everyone's individual. But I would say you had a really strong report. There is a lot to be proud of here. And for me, it was a pleasure not to hear about some financial challenges. Of course, you do have those, but not of the magnitude that other councils have. So we did make 8 recommendations. And again, I would say these are not serious fundamental recommendations. They are building on good policy and practice and giving you some ideas about how you can become outstanding in some of those areas. Already, it's great to see that you've developed an action plan. And I can see the dates there, some clear milestones. So you're well down the track on that. And I'm pleased to say that as part of this process, you had the challenge, you've got your action plan, and the team will be coming back, a slimmed down team will be coming back for a day in January, just to see how you're doing and perhaps to give you some further food for thought. So we'd like again to thank you for inviting us. It's a privilege to spend time with the council to discuss your challenges, to support you in the work you want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Helen. Members, We now move to the debate on this item. With this debate, I will also invite members to put any questions to Mr. Fleming and Ms. Murray regarding the review and their findings. Can I ask you to indicate by raising a hand, please, if you wish to speak? Councillor Sweeney and Councillor Holland.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank the peer team for their kind words. And I hope you felt welcome when you came here and had the support of all officers. I'm sure you did. I could eulogize over the finance team all day long, as I frequently do. But today I want to go a little bit different from this one. And when you read the reports, it's always been a big thing for me. It's the partnership working side of things, and the fact that everybody works together and everybody values the input from the Borough Council. I think partnership working is the future of local government. And I've said before that if we have a problem with the police or something like that, we just go downstairs and talk to the chief inspector and the county councils in this building. And I just think it's the future. And this theme absolutely goes all through this report, doesn't it? How well we work with other partners in the sector, and I absolutely support that. I thank you for your time, and I feel it was an excellent process and a very enjoyable process, and thank you for your time and effort.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Oh, sorry, it's Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to the presenters this evening. Welcome, Mr. Fleming. To misquote Marlowe, this is Newcastle-under-Lyme, nor are we out of it. It's a sign. You should definitely move here. It's easy to be enthusiastic about a report that is so strong. I chair the Finance Scrutiny Committee. One of our members who's no longer on this authority always used to hold this council up against an imaginary gold standard and say, actually, are we well run? Are we a good council? And he found that we were. And I think this report endorses his finding and what we've learnt over many years scrutinising the administration. So there is work to be done, but I'm delighted that it is such a strong report. I think it speaks very well, not just of the people who are in power, but of all councillors, all members in the room, all of our officers, including the opposition. If I can speak briefly on recommendation number 6, which relates directly to scrutiny, I think we have achieved a great deal. I think the examples that were drawn out of really good, effective scrutiny are the right ones, certainly in favour of the same process being followed in terms of the budget scrutiny. And so the other example was Wally's Quarry. That shows that as an authority, we need leadership at the very top, and we need wise heads from officers and supporters in order to direct that kind of scrutiny. In terms of the budget, that's quite dependent on the opposition, whoever they may be at a given time. And I think we all agreed, certainly in the panel meeting that we had with the peer review team, that it was a very effective budget scrutiny round. It was certainly more effective than that time we put a sofa outside the Guildhall. It was even better than the scrutiny cafes we used to have. So if we can do that again next year, I'd be delighted as chair of Finance Assets and Performance Scrutiny. It will depend on an opposition that wants to come forward in the same spirit. And I think we've been given tonight another example in the scrutiny that will be applied to the petition that's come in. We've been given another opportunity to demonstrate that we can do scrutiny really well. We voted tonight, some of us, to send it to scrutiny so that we can consider that petition properly. And I hope, very much hope, that members of that committee, when it arrives, will be able to do it justice. And if I can participate in that process, I will. So thanks very much to the peer review team and for the report tonight. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Councillor Fox-Hewitt.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. So firstly, I'd like to thank the team from the LGA for their work, for the feedback report that we've got tonight. And I must say the inclusive and engaging manner in which you engage with all members, it was good. I'd just like to comment on the action plan, if I may, and then I'll finish with a request for something in for inclusion. So looking at the action plan, review and relaunch commercial strategies, including income generation and financial review through the use of efficiency boards. I have to say it's disappointing that the administration voted those same recommendations down by the opposition group as part of our budget response, but when they've later been made and seemingly echoed by the LGA, they're acceptable. On the action plan 23-24, it talks about building on recent scrutiny. I've just got an ask. If you recall the provisional financial outturn report that went to Cabinet on the 18th of July, paragraphs 9.2 and 9.3, it says that the capital programme will be reviewed by the Capital Assets and Commercial Investments Review Group and will report to Council annually. It goes on to say that it represents a high level of risk captured on the risk register, which is available on request. My ask tonight to the leader is that that group has opposition representation on it, that group, given the high level of risk, should meet quarterly, and that those detailed risk assessments are part of the scrutiny process going forward. So my request is that those recommendations of representation reports and more frequency of meetings are placed upon the action plan. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Weirden.
Thank you again. I'd just like to thank the team who came to visit us. I've worked in a number of situations whereby peer review was looked at as a very adversarial process. People coming in with big sticks to beat you or give you a tick or a cross by your name and so on. I found it a most exhilarating process, very thorough, bit scary it was so thorough, but lovely to have such positive outcomes and to be able to form an action plan that makes us even better than they found us can only be a good thing. I do appreciate the approach that it's a team thing between the peer reviewers and the council as a whole, and that's quite refreshing too. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Brockie.
No, just thanks to Councillor Fox-Hewitt. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you. Thanks to Councillor Fox-Hewitt. Couldn't have said it better myself, so I'm going to shut up now.
Thank you, Councillor Brockie. Councillor Tagg for the final right of reply, please.
I think you would mark us down on the use of mics tonight in the next peer review. We've had a bit of a nightmare on those, but I think they've gone into reset mode. But thank you very much for the presentation. I think one thing you both talked about is the ambition that we've got as a council. I think going back to the first item we had tonight, which was the local plan petition, having a borough local plan is one of our ambitions. We need to do that to enable us to move our borough forward. And I'd make the pledge now that the public have gone and election hearing is over, is hopefully the opposition can work with us on that, because a lot of these sites that have been put forward were actually in previous local plans. And I know elections come and go, but in the end, what we want is that 20-year vision for our borough that enables us not only to protect green spaces where we can, but also enable houses to be built. I think, Peter, you are the only one tonight that's mentioned the 850 celebrations, which is a complete change from when you were here in March, and I never shut up about it, if you remember. Every day it was our 850 borough and all of that. So thank you for that, Peter, to be the first person to mention it tonight. We will mention it later on as well. But I think you quite summed it up. This borough's got a lot of history. It's a borough that the people are really proud to be part of. I think it comes through on our staff, from what our staff are saying. They're really proud to work for the council as well. They share the ambitions we've got for the council, and I think that's really good going forward, as we obviously want to strive to improving forward. We won't rest on our laurels as we move forward with that massive regeneration programme and the transformation of the council. And I think I'm not going to have a go at Councillor Fox-Hewitt too much, because we're in a non-political environment, but it doesn't stop me usually, no. But saying that these recommendations were all in their budget plans, the Labour Group's budget plans they brought to scrutiny. Unfortunately, we couldn't agree those because it would have really restricted the regeneration of the borough with some of those proposals that would have led possibly to us having to give money back to the government unspent. So we couldn't do that, and we were never going to do that. I think lastly, on the issue to do with the Corporate Asset Review Group, CAC as it's called, I think, as I explained, Councillor Brockie raised it at Cabinet last week. That is an internal officer portfolio holder briefing. They happen in every council. They don't necessarily be made public. I think where we can make the outcome of that public is through our reports to Cabinet and through to scrutiny. And as I said to Councillor Brockie last week, we will ensure that there is a a section on that review of capital and making sure we get the best use of our capital resources and get projects delivered. And if there's any delay, report on those, what we're going to do to catch up. And so I make that assurance tonight that we will go through the correct processes of scrutiny in Cabinet to keep members up to date on that. But again, thank you for that. A brilliant report. And it's something which everybody can be proud of with the member officers. And as I say later on the leader's statement, I'd like to thank everybody involved in it, from the senior officers through to the staff on the front line, through to members, Cabinet, all backbenchers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Can we put the proposal to the vote, please? All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? Any abstentions? Can you raise your hands, please? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you to Helen and Peter. You may, if you'd like to leave. Thank you. Thank you. Members, the next substantive item of business on this evening's agenda is changes to committee membership. A copy of the report and associated papers can be found on pages 57 to 63 of your agenda. In the supplementary pack at pages 5 to 7 is an addendum to the report which addresses the further changes in the committee membership arising from Sue Moffat's resignation. I will deal with this item in two parts. The report in your main agenda is asking you to note an urgent decision and councillor appointments to committees arising from the resignation of Stephanie Talbot, with the Chief Executive has agreed with the group leaders. The report in the supplementary pack is seeking a resolution for a vacant seat arising from the resignation of Sue Moffat. Councillor Tagg, would you please now introduce the reports, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank the Chief Executive for working through the changes which have been brought about by resignations in the Labour group. And we've got now a fast process of doing this when there are any changes to committees, and we've used them in the past and we've used them here. So the first report covers the obviously resignation of Councillor Steph Talbot. I'd like to wish her all the best for the future, by the way, as obviously now that she resigned as a councillor. So I would certainly move those recommendations, and obviously those affecting particularly the Audit and Standards Committee has already been enacted for the last meeting that took place, I think, a week or two ago. The second report is a bit more contentious, isn't it? Because it's ongoing now following the resignation of Sue Moffat. Again, I'd like to wish her the best for the future and thank her for her time on the council as a key member of the Labour group, and always, as I think Councillor Holland said earlier, always a person that inputted into scrutiny and was also working on the housing working group that Councillor Bentley Smith chairs, and was inputting into that, and hopefully can capture still some of the work that Sue put in there in the final recommendations. But obviously, as you'll see, members, there are two nominations for a replacement on the scrutiny committee, but none for the planning. Those are the two committees that Sue was on, and my thought process on believing that the Labour group, and I suggested this to the Chief Executive, but this was refused by the leadership of the Labour group, is that they should take the planning seat for two reasons. One, it was likely to be the only meeting that would take place before the by-elections take place, so it'd be good to have the full membership on there. And also, planning is a non-political committee, and if, for example, the Conservative group were to take this position and allow Labour to take the scrutiny position, it would make it 8-4 on the planning committee in the council, which is still very close, 25 to 17. And I think that wouldn't be a proper way to run that committee. And I think Labour should have their full numbers on there. And that's why my group tonight will be voting to put a member onto the scrutiny committee, which won't meet until the end of September, I believe, which I think even on some of the long-term projections for the by-elections will have been taken place by then. And then we will, again, the Chief Executive will get his calculator out and we'll move the arm around and wind it up to see what effect that has on the or any other by-elections that may take place in the short term. We do not know. So I would move the recommendations in the first report, but then also move the recommendations in the second report and call for a vote on who should be on the Economic Development Scrutiny Committee, and then call, obviously then I think you, Mr. Mayor, will call for the obviously the loser of that vote group to nominate somebody for planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Sweeney, would you like to second the motion, please?
I certainly would, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
Members, we now move on to the debate on this item. Can I ask you to indicate by raising your hand if you wish to speak? Councillor Stubbs, in anticipation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I did brief you before. I'd like to raise a point of order, please, Mr. Mayor, that's aimed towards the legal staff, if not the chief exec. The addendum that we've received, I believe in the last 24 hours, in fact, I believe in the last 12 hours, mentions the Local Government and Housing Act 1989 and associated regulations. My questions are, with the addendum not being received before the standard sort of time for councillors to review these things, is it legal? And secondly, what legal advice did the council take? Because my reading of the Constitution does not allow the leader of the council to dictate to the opposition which seat they are going to take.
Yes, please.
Okay, if I can address that, and I'll address the proportionality issue first of all, and then I'll ask Ms. Beardwell to talk to the legality of the paper coming forward. In terms of the proportionality, what we do when we get a change of membership, as has happened, is we work out the proportion of the overall seats on the council that get on the committees that get allocated to each of the groups. And we also seek as far as possible to get the same proportion of seats to each party within each of the individual committees as far as possible. So with Councillor Moffat's resignation, the proportionality means that across all of the committees, 40.5% of the seats should go to the Labour group and 59.5% of the seats should go to the Conservative group. So across all committees, that's 32 Labour and 47 Conservative. So with Councillor Moffat resigning her seat on the council, it creates vacancies in planning and in Economy and Place Scrutiny Committee. In terms of proportionality, the change results in Labour reducing the number of seats that it's entitled to across committees by 1, and the Conservatives increasing by 1. So on Planning Committee, Labour are entitled, in terms of the precise calculation, to 4.86 seats, and the Conservatives are entitled to 7.14 seats. So that rounds to 5 seats for the Labour group and 7 seats to the Conservative group. On scrutiny, Labour are entitled to 4.45 and the Conservatives to 6.55. So mathematically, when we do the rounding, the overall proportionality is best served by Labour keeping the seat on planning and the Conservatives taking the seat on scrutiny. Now that is the position mathematically. You can see from those calculations that they are, we're in the territory of rounding, and it really is then a matter for the groups to determine through whatever bargaining they want to do, actually which committee takes the seats on which group takes the seat on which of those committees. So we've done if you like, a very clean job in terms of the overall proportionality, and it really then falls to the groups to decide actually who is going to take up those seats to best serve that proportionality. And would you like to?
In my view, it's quite lawful for the paper to come before the council. The alternative would be to postpone it to the next meeting, which would mean that the seats vacated by the second councillor would be vacant. The council is, though, required under the provisions of the Local Government and Housing Act to review the proportionality table as soon as certain events listed in the Act happen, one of which is where you have a vacancy occasioned by somebody resigning from the council.
Thank you to both officers. So can I just clarify that time limits when it comes to deporting councillors can be overruled, basically?
The paper was published with, the paper was published within the 5 clear working days. Not the addendum. And I think in my view, that would include the addendum.
Yeah, the addendum is bringing to members' attention something that was not possible to deal with when the original papers were published, but it is something that needs to be dealt with, as soon as possible by council.
Without going round and round, the legal officers just told us that the time limits are in place. The addendum was published today, which was not within the time limits. Regardless of the urgency of the balancing of the committees, the time limits have not been met by the addendum, so therefore they should be withdrawn.
Addendum can be taken as part of the original paper. So I'm quite content that what we're doing is lawful here.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg, for the final right to reply, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think there's been some, sort of comments from the other group, but we are putting this to a vote. It's not me being dictatorial or anything like that. I think the reason, Mr. Mayor, is that planning is so important in this council as it's a non-political, and I think, as I've already made the case for that better parity on it, because there are Labour candidates, there are even Labour councillors in this room that have in the past used the planning committee to say Conservatives have made this decision on this planning application. I remember Bradwell, wasn't it? Nipeway. You had candidates putting out things saying evil Tories put this through planning and voted it through. And well, that is not the case on planning. It's a non-political group. So the Labour Party can please get and put a new member on there. And we're going to vote that through tonight, Mr. Mayor. And I just look at the Labour member on that they wish to put on to economic development, and it's John Williams. Great, got a respect for John. He does carry the Labour group, doesn't he? He's actually got the most attendance across there. Is there nobody else in the Labour group that can stand forward? We know they're losing councillors all over the place, but aren't any of them going to step up and actually do some more work and not leave it all to John Jill Williams? But John deserves a rest sometimes, and so do we. No.
Councillor Thack,
so I'll move to. I'll move then to the recommendations that we take a vote on the appointment of the chair, a member to the EDP meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, we now move to the vote. From your main agenda, please can the 3 recommendations be agreed? Moving to the recommendations in the supplementary agenda, we now move to deal with the changes in political proportionality in committees arising from the resignation of Sue Moffat. Members, a vote will now be taken to determine the filling of the vacant seat of the Economic and Place Scrutiny Committee. All those in favour of Councillor John Williams, please raise your hand high, please. Yep. All those against?
No, this is for Mark Holland.
Okay, it's Mark Holland. Okay. All those for Mark Holland, please. I do apologise. I'm reading the letters here. All those for Mark Holland, please. Put your hands in the air. 22. Yeah. That's 22 and 14. So, Councillor Mark Holland, you will take the seat of the Economical and Place Scrutiny Committee. Yeah. Yeah. To maintain proportionality, the vacant seat on the Planning Committee will be allocated to the Labour Group. Do I have a nomination for the Labour Group, please?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll defer that and notify you in due course.
Thank you. Yeah. Members, the next item of business on this evening's agenda is the leader's statement. A copy can be found on pages 9 to 11 of your supplementary agenda pack. I'm going to ask Councillor Simon Tagg if he would like to introduce his statement. I will then invite members to put questions to the leader or relevant portfolio holders. I will take each paragraph of the statement in turn and will invite up to 3 questions at a time before I ask the leader to respond. If I please could remind members that this isn't a debate. Once the leader has responded, there is no right for members to reply. Councillor Tagg, would you like to introduce your statement, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd like to do that. I'd just like to just highlight a couple of things actually which aren't in the report, which have a bit. One of them is certainly stop press, but I'm holding up here, which is the Britain in Bloom 850 brochure. We're having our national judging tomorrow for the Britain in Bloom. You'll be there, Mr. Mayor, so will I. Hopefully, to obviously welcome the national judges as we enter the national finals. And in our 850 year, we're pulling out all the stops. Even got the fountains working again. People have noticed as they've come into the council tonight to try and win that national award. So good luck to everybody involved, and thank you to all our staff that work tirelessly, the sponsors, and all the, more importantly, the community that get involved. I've seen some of the judging that's been going on for the regional finals last week. The community is central to that, and hopefully we can, fingers crossed, have a good outcome. Secondly, is people will be aware of the massive traveller incursion on Wolstanton Marsh. I think 15 caravans yesterday and another 11 this morning. I'm pleased to say that this evening, after the council's got the section 78 order, that the police have, with our council staff, moved them all on. Where they've gone to, I don't know, but certainly off Wolstanton Marsh, and we will put them stumps in there to reprotect that. But I think a really good bit of partnership working. We heard earlier with the peer review about working closely with our partners. The police are key to that. I'd like to thank John Owen, our head police guy from here in Newcastle, for working with us on that, and a really good result to move them off there. They were actually on the football pitches on the marsh there, which are used most Sundays, and they were pitching their caravans, rolling their cars around, setting up dog kennels and stuff like that, which is, a survey was done of their welfare. They were seen to be in good order, and we've taken the legal action. So it was an illegal encampment, and I'm really pleased that the police have worked with us to remove those. And we will send that message out to travellers that if they come illegally, they will be removed. Thank you. But I move the statement as set out and welcome any comments or questions to either myself or the cabinet members as appropriate.
Any questions to the leader, please? Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regards to the active lifestyle strategy, I don't know which.
We take them in order. Sorry, Mark. We take
yeah.
them in order. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
We note in paragraph 1 the dates when Cabinet met, and we move to paragraph 2, which is about Wally's Quarry odour issues. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 2, please? Councillor Adcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to reiterate what it says in the report about welcoming the community engagement event that was held at the fire station, and thank the council officers who attended, as well as the EA officers and the UK Health Protection Agency. The feedback I had from residents was that there was lots of information available, and they really welcomed that. There were so many officers willing to give their time and share information. And I had some very good conversations with the EA officers about why the odours may have spiked in the spring and what can be done in future. I really welcome that there's going to be further capping on the Gallingale side of the site, which should hope improve our position. So I really welcome that. My question for the leader is, if there's demand for it in the future, would he support another such meeting being held?
Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the question and the comments there. I think yes, certainly would. I think it's obviously the ball is in the EA's court if it's one that's arranged by them. But I think going actually out into the community, near the fire station is near to the epicenter of where the problems have been for the last few years. So I think that was really good. And I think the more of those we can do, the better to update people. I think, as it says in the report, as you mentioned, Councillor Adcock, we had the spike, and that has now subsided a bit now. Hopefully this capping that's going on over the summer will lead, particularly on that Gallingale side, which affects the estate there and pool fields, particularly in Thistlebury. will lead to an improvement. And we obviously have a watching brief on this. We have our abatement notice there if we need to use it, and we will not, sort of shirk from using that if necessary. And our officers at all levels in the environmental team, right up to Martin, our chief executive, are working to ensure that we if we need that evidence, we get it, and we lead to a prosecution if the Secretary of State would allow us to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Any more speakers on paragraph 2, please? No. Members, paragraph 3 is about the town deal and future High Street Fund. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 3, please? Brockie and Councillor Gorton. Yeah. Councillor Brockie first, please.
It's working. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The allocation of public money to projects with potentially long-term value, such as those in the town centre, requires a certain amount of humility on the part of the decision makers. Residents have expressed dismay at the visible consequences of aborted building projects, the prioritisation of single-person dwellings over the need for homes for families, and the pushing ahead by this administration of this council into debt in order to pursue the Rycroft development. Market fluctuations to date have significantly unsettled the original proposals, and a rethink may be in order. Can the leader assure the council and the public that the scale of these projects and their appropriateness to the evolving needs of our town remain under active review?
Okay. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's two things really I want to talk about on paragraph 2, questions. The Rycroft development site is becoming a piecemeal development site. I can understand the race to build the car park because of funding constraints, but the rest of the site should have an overreaching design statement. Design of proposed hotel should take in consideration the design of the proposed housing, Aspire headquarters that were informed or to be built on the Rycroft. It is important that the town centre developments should be treated so. Can the lady assure me that the rest of the site is designed and built to complement our existing town centre? Thank you. The other point I'd like to make, which I brought up, I'd like to speak at cabinet, is the football, so-called football changing rooms on the Whammy. And it's for the residents of Nottingham Cross Heath, but it isn't a football, it's football clubs all over the borough. And really the football changing room put into question because there's other sporting events such as the park run and other activities in Nottingham that would love to use the comfort stop and use the centre. So really I'm asking the leader, will you just, as you go through the stage in the Newcastle Football Club, who will I suppose take on the so-called football changing rooms, that it can be used for other sporting activities in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. And we'll take one more. Councillor Parker. That's your 3 questions, Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was in the town yesterday and took it upon myself to have a little stroll up to Merrill Street to see what's going on around the York Place area, and stuck my head in the roadbook. And yeah, it's a shame that we are going to be losing that, but we have to move forward. And it is great to see the redevelopment of York Place going forwards. So can the portfolio holder update us on how the relocation of the remaining York Place tenants is progressing? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Mr. I'll take those in order, and the last one I will hand to Councillor Sweeney, Councillor Parker's question. But thank you, Councillor Brock. If Alistair has been told off there, then that was quite a strong comment. But I would just as I will always do, throw things back at you, unfortunately. I know you haven't been a councillor very long, but when you talk about failed developments that happened under Labour administration, the Sky building, and then also this one-person student flat was the brainchild of a former leader of this council, probably two. One of them was probably sitting here, to get students into the town. Well, that hasn't worked out very well, has it? And we need to move forward on different types of development, which the Rycroft site brings forward for us. I think when it talks about that we're getting into loads of debt, it's carrying on that sort of mantra that Councillor Fox-Hewitt was talking about during the peer review. But I'll just refer Councillor Brockie and the other Labour members to the peer review. When we get a clean bill of health for our finances, it does say you need to sequence the schemes going forward, and that is why we have a blueprint for the Rycroft, which brings me to Councillor Williams's plans. A question, of course, about the plans, and we did put a blueprint through Cabinet, and one of the part of that, Councillor Williams, was about having a good standard of design on these sites that complements what's existing in the town, but also other things that may go on the Rycroft. And if I know Councillor Williams has seen the York Place development because it's been through planning, and a lot of thought has gone into that, to trying to recreate the street scene that was there pre the building of the 60s arcade, which again has seen better days. But I think for Councillor Williams to raise that, I'm going to have to have a little go, unfortunately. For Councillor Williams to raise that, I mean, I wasn't on the council or on the planning committee or a cabinet member when One London Road was given permission or Brunswick Court were given permission. They are the worst design buildings in our town, and that happened under a time when we didn't have proper planning rules in place for design. We do have those now, and they'll be part of our local plan going forward. So I think we can rest assured that we do have good design at heart, and particularly on the Rycroft, it's going to be a high profile site as you come around the ring road, and York Place will be a high profile corner of obviously Red Line Square. The design is paramount, getting the right design, so we move forward with good design buildings. Thank you. And I hand over to Councillor Sweeney to answer Councillor Parker's comment.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'll just mention one thing. When the Leader mentioned Sky building, there was a sort of groaning from the Labour group, as if the Leader wasn't telling the truth. Well, he is telling the truth. I think it's the truth that we're telling more and more often. The Labour administration at the Sky building. So it's not to anybody. It's down to them.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney.
Okay, thanks. What was I going to say now? Oh, yes, Councillor Parker. Yeah, the York Place, there's two places left in there now. No, there's Specsavers and there's the Co-op Bank. Both those now are scheduled to be out before Christmas. And the better news is they're both staying in the town centre. So it's well on the way. Thank you. Thank you for the question, Councillor Parker.
Okay, we have a few more questions. Councillor Wilkes. No. Wilkes, did you say Wilkes? Oh, sorry, I do apologise. Councillor Waring, I'm blind.
I won't take offence. I just wanted to say I'm really pleased that the Cabinet agreed the land acquisition in relation to the shared services hub. This is something that's quite fundamental to the project, and we couldn't really proceed any further without it. It allows us to move the project forward with conviction, enables the clarification of costs and identification of the scope of the public realm works that we may be able to undertake. I think that all of this will help to facilitate much needed and wide-ranging improvements to Kidsgrove Town Centre. So it's a very good step for us to take. Thank you.
And the next question is Councillor Gorton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to just ask a question or two about the Philip Astley Centre. But before I do that, could I just express my thanks as one of the councillors for Stanton to the Leader and the portfolio holder and officers for the swift action that has been taken actually to remove the travellers from the marsh. And I just hope that we're not faced with a huge clean-up bill. But anyway, I do express my thanks. I'm sure the action that has been taken will be appreciated by residents. Anyway, coming on to the Philip Astley Centre, first thing I want to do, Mr. Mayor, is really to wish this project well. It's good to read that funding has been secured for a heritage project, and I think it's perfectly right that the borough celebrates its connection with Philip Astley. We want the centre to be a success, but I think we have to recognise that the outlook for small heritage centres and museums is very challenging. One recent survey reported that since 2010, 200 centres and museums have closed. And it's clear from the business plan that went to Cabinet in April that the centre will only be based in Merrill Street until the end of next year. After December 2024, it's proposed the centre and its contents will move to York Place, which of course is yet to be built. And can I suggest that changing the location of the centre so soon after its launch is perhaps not an ideal way to take it forward? Now, mention was made in the Cabinet report of collaboration between the centre and the New Vic Theatre. Great, but it was surprising that there was no mention that I could read of collaboration with the Brampton Museum or Newcastle College, which the leader will know has a thriving performing arts department. Will the leader reassure council that the Ashley Centre will not be a standalone body, but will work with the museum, Newcastle College and other performing arts groups? Now, it seemed odd that in neither the Cabinet report nor the business plan there was any reference to collaboration overseas. The leader will know that North America and parts of Europe have strong circus traditions. To prosper, the centre will need to bring in visitors, and collaboration with circus bodies overseas could play a part in boosting visitors' numbers and raising the centre's profile. Will the leader impress upon the team who will take the project forward that collaboration will be essential to its success? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corson. One more question for the leader, Councillor Fox-Hewitt. That's your 3 questions, then Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll apologise in advance for members if I'm seemingly living rent-free in Councillor Tagg's head tonight. The Sky building, Councillor Sweeney's forgotten the sentinel photo of him saying he sorted it out. The question is regarding the Performing Arts Centre. It's an easy question, just for a bit of clarity and detail. Am I correct in my understanding that the spend of 1.9 million has increased by 100,000 on the previous estimate? And if so, just is there any detail behind that? Is it material costs or planning, or just what's the reasons for the £100,000 increase, if I'm correct in that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg.
Thank you. Take those in order. Thank you, Councillor Waring, on the thank you for your work, particularly on the shared service hub project, which we've agreed now at Cabinet to go to purchase a bit of land for that to be developed. I think thank you to you as Chair, Mayor of Kidsgrove Town Council for being a willing partner to take sort of the control of that building, and I think it'll be a great development for that part of town in Kidsgrove. Supplementing what we've already done in Kidsgrove through the Town Deal Fund, and wish it all its success, and a lot of hard work to go, as there always is with these projects. But I think we've got a good team working on it, and also Councillor Waring for his support as well, and our local MP in the area, Jonathan Gullis, has signed up to it as well, getting that to be a good centre for the people of Kidsgrove. Thank you, Councillor Gorton, for your comments about the Philip Astley Centre. I think we've got a record of success in keeping community buildings going here in Newcastle. We've got the Guildhall, which of course was don't want to go back to how it used to be, but it was due to be, mothballed and shut down by the previous administration. Also, Kidsgrove Sports Centre again was a project, beyond all odds. We managed to bring that into place. Just survived its first year as a community-led sports centre, again with odds stacked against it, with bills and costs from energy, etc. So I think we stand in good stead. But what really, I think to answer Councillor Gorton, is talk about the team, the steering group that are involved with the Astley Centre for Circus, and one of them is Andrew Van Buren, which we all know. He's key to that, and I think he's got those links overseas you talk about, particularly with I think it's Monaco, isn't it, where there's a statue to Philip Astley in Monaco, and also I think he's got links into the college as well, and also into the New Vic. So I'm quite reassured with that. But I think with all these projects, we move forward. We're securing the money, which we have done now, which I'll just confirm for Councillor Fox, which as far as I'm aware is exactly the same as it was when we bid for it, 1.9, just looking at Simon McKenny there, our officer, is that we will then move to ensuring that this is a success, and the people that are have got a passion for this, which is Andrew Van Buren and his team, really will want to make this a success, and we'll do all that we can. And it would really be good, wouldn't it, if they took one of the units in our New York Place development, which of course is around that area is where Philip Astley was born all those hundreds of years ago. So going back to the roots quite literally on that. So I think hopefully that will reassure Councillor Gorton. And I'm sure if he wants to chat to Andrew Van Bourne, he will give you a rundown of his plans for the centre. And it will, it will be fit very snugly with our museum as well. All because he doesn't mention it in the report. I think it's taken as a given that our excellent museum will be involved in that and supporting the project as it goes forward. And I think it's all three on that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Members, paragraph 4 is about the sustainability environment update. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 4, please? Councillor Panther.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member for a Sustainable Environment please inform this council of the progress being made in adopting HVO for the fuel for the vehicles, the effect on vehicle emissions, if known, and if there's any financial advantage to the councils to adopting this? Thank you.
Before you answer, any more questions? No. Councillor Tagg.
And that one to Councillor Hutchins, who's the Cabinet Member.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Following recent Cabinet approval in late 2022, Newcastle-under-Lyme Borough Council started introducing the use of hydro-treated vegetable oil for its waste and recycle fleet from January 2023, slowly building up to all of its fleet by March 2023. Hydro-treated vegetable oil, or HVO, as we know it as, is a 100% renewable, premium, high-quality fuel made from renewable and sustainable raw materials, such as vegetable oil, animal oils, and fats, all of which do not release any new CO2 into the atmosphere. All raw materials are checked and verified, and the fuel's credentials audited by the Department of Transport to ensure both sustainability and product integrity are certified. HVO is part of the paraffinic family of fuels which are renewable, stable, sustainable, and a high quality, making it perfectly suited for a wide range of applications, including vehicles, generators, and the industrial power systems. By changing to the hydrogenated vegetable oil, we have reduced the waste and recycling fleet CO2 emissions by 90%. We buy the HVO on the open market. We monitor any price fluctuations and buy when appropriate, sometimes buying thousands of gallons and saving thousands of pounds for our residents and the Borough Council. The miles per gallon is the same, and in some of the vehicles, we're actually getting a better miles per gallon than the white fuel diesel. So it's win-win. We save money for the Borough Council and our residents, and we help protect the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Members, paragraph 5 is about the active lifestyle strategy. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 5, please? Councillor Stubbs to start.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a question for the portfolio holder, really. Can I first offer my support for this strategy? Anything that encourages residents to participate in regular activity, provides support for those with health needs, and provides leisure and sporting opportunities is roundly to be supported. But does the portfolio holder find it extremely hypocritical that the commercial strategy of the administration has allowed for not only the removal of 9 850-year anniversary banners on the main road through Kidsgrove, but replaced them with banners advertising a fast food outlet in the same week as an active lifestyle strategy was launched? We can't even claim that we're supporting a borough business with these adverts because the location of the fast food outlet is in Cheshire East. Could the portfolio holder comment on that, please?
Okay, then we go on to Councillor Diamond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I welcome the news of the new 5-year active lifestyle strategy. Could the leader confirm if any funding has been allocated for new or refurbished tennis courts in Clough Park, Kidsgrove, something I have been long calling for, because it has been noted that the Westlands has just had its second refurbishment in 3 years. Thank you.
A third question, Councillor Burnett Faulkner, please.
I would just like to thank the Cabinet for endorsing this new 5-year active lifestyle strategy. I think that this would be very good for the residents of Kidsgrove, and especially seeing as we've just celebrated the first anniversary yesterday of Kidsgrove Sports Centre. We had an open day which was well attended by a lot of the residents, and it was enjoyed by everyone, and I'm hoping that this will go on for many, many more years. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions for the leader, please? Well, we've got 2 more, so we'll answer the first 3. Councillor Tagg.
Okay, thank you. Just related to Councillor Stubbs, I went over to Kidsgrove yesterday to visit the sports centre for Councillor Jill has just said. Sorry. It's gone out of my mind. What Jill just said, and I saw these and I thought, what on earth are these? So I did some investigating. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, it's something we can begin to act on, is that these are hired out spaces by the county council. It's part of the contract. So I've contacted, and Jill actually did also contact me about them as well. So I've taken that up with the relevant director at the county council for the reasons which you've just said, Councillor Stubbs. And I think it doesn't look good for a town to be advertising. We do. I mean, it's not even a local takeaway, is it, as you say? But I think on healthy eating messages, it's not a really good message. So we do have. I mean, the warning is we do have some of those sites in Newcastle that are county council owned, and we wouldn't want those type of things also coming to the town as well. So I think I've asked for the county council to do a review on them, and I'm not sure how, because it's a private contractor that does the advertising for us, how they can possibly get those removed, or certainly make sure that at the end of the advertising time they can't advertise again. Because as you say, Councillor Stubbs, it's counter to what we're talking about here, which is healthy lifestyles and active lifestyles. I think the tennis, thank you, Councillor Diamond, for the tennis court issue. I think I might just correct you. I don't think within 3 years has there been any work done on the Westlands. It's been many years. They were in a really sorry state. As for the Woolstanton courts, which are the other ones that have had some work on them, they were even longer. So I sympathise with the issue in Clough Hall Park, and we did apply to the Lawn Tennis Association for that funding. So I think if there's any more streams of funding that will come forward, I'm sure that Jill and the officers will want to ensure we get a win for Kidsgrove out of that as well. And I'd also say, as we move forward on the town deal, if there's any reprofiling of any money, I know that our MP in the area, Jonathan Gullis, is really keen on seeing some more sports facilities to be enhanced, like we've done with the sports centre, like we've done with the pump track. So I'm sure if there is any reprofiling of that town deal money, we could put them into enhanced sport facilities. And of course, Councillor Diamond could put forward the tennis courts at that time to be included in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Skelding.
Thank you. Just to reiterate what Jill actually commented on to do with the Kidsgrove Sports Centre, just like to make a brief comment if I could. I would like all the members to join me in congratulating Kidsgrove Sports Centre on the first year since the reopening. And they did, as Jill said again, yesterday celebrated the first year anniversary with a day of events, as they put it. They set up some stalls. They had some a mini fair, inflatables for kids, some free sports activities as well that they were passing out. And it was, it was really touching to see all of the local community come together to mark this occasion for the first year. As well as Councillor Tagg, I called in myself yesterday, and I had the pleasure of catching up with Dave Rigby and some of his team as well, actually. So if I could, a brief update on some of the achievements they've made over the first year. Initially, at the start, when they first reopened, they set a target of 700 members within that first year. And by yesterday's count, they successfully achieved this with over 1,100 signed up members. So they've overachieved massively on that count. Alongside with that, they've got an ever-increasing pay-on-entry customer base, which I'm confident they can convert some of those into full memberships. One other thing that was good for the town that I thought was they quoted last year a rather ambitious target of teaching 500 children to swim within the first year. And again, the count yesterday, they've actually taught 750 children from Kidsgrove and the surrounding areas to teach in their local pool. So to add to this, there's a massive uptake on classes, sporting events, and use of the state-of-the-art gym as well. Yesterday alone, on the events day, there were over 1,500 visitors to the centre in one day alone throughout the day. So all of this proving that, well, firstly, for what a mistake it was in closing the centre in the first place. And secondly, thankfully, through funding from the town deal, what a great investment this has been, not only in the facility, but for the people of Kidsgrove. So again, I'd like to congratulate everyone involved with that and everyone who works at Kidsgrove Sports Centre. And again, invite all members to join me in congratulating a project well committed to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I've got a question, but firstly, I'd just like to say the Kidsgrove Sports Centre has made a massive difference in my family, and it's open in the last year. Previously, my other half, she wasn't too keen on the exercise, and my son put on a few pounds in the lockdown. But now, 3 days a week, we all go down there together, and my son's getting ready to get for the physical for the Navy. So it's really, I mean, this whole thing, active lifestyle strategy, has made a big difference to our house. And leading on to the question, I know there's now a new gym at the J2, which was absolutely brilliant. But during the lockdown, I would have thought the memberships went down at the J2. How are they now? And how have they been affected by the Kidsgrove Sports Centre?
Thank you for that. So some really good questions there, and I think that tribute to volunteers by Councillor Skeldon is and tribute to the staff. I would echo that, and I saw that yesterday myself. And I think you mentioned all of the use of the community facilities are getting there. I'll also say that they brought in people to rent rooms, a beautician, a nail bar, etc., renting out that space to bring an income to help the centre to survive, which is really good. And I'd pay tribute to all of the volunteers and the trustees that have helped. I think the comment you make about Councillor Crisp is about you using that. I think a lot of people in Audley in the north of the borough actually use Kidsgrove Sports Centre. I know there's a by-election, so we try and claim credit for it. As you were saying, it was closed, but I think the people of Audley have got a new facility as well on their doorstep, which they're using, and you've proved that. I think on the issue to do with J2, thank you for the question, and we'd also have a similar question later, of course, as well. But I think all leisure centres took a knock during the pandemic, when they closed, membership dropped off. We now, I'm pleased to say, have 3,330 members as of today at J2, and that's a 10% increase on the lockdown, on pre-lockdown levels. That's really good, really going in the right direction. All the time and effort and money that's been spent on the new gym at J2. I still call it our premier sports facility in the borough, of course, even though not far behind is Kidsgrove Sports Centre now, and probably drawing level with it. We can have two, can't we? Which is really good. And I think your last bit of the question, has there been any impact on J2 membership by Kidsgrove Sports Centre? Well, obviously from the facts I've told you, no, and I think they complement each other, and as I say, deal with that and help that northern area of the borough, and also with the city council making decisions over dimensions and other leisure facilities in the north of the city, then we're getting people coming over the border and coming to Kidsgrove Sports Centre, and I also believe from over the border in Cheshire East as well, South Cheshire. So I think it's we've got enough room in this borough for two really good sports facilities, and I'm really pleased, as this report says, that they're both doing really well. Membership's good, membership really brilliant for the sports centre in Kidsgrove after just a year, and ours here in J2 in the town centre getting back 10% above its pre-pandemic levels.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Members, paragraph 6 is about the financial and performance review report on the fourth quarter. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 6, please? Councillor Panther.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Borough Museum in the Brampton is a true asset to this borough. As a deputy mayor and as a resident of this borough, I've had the opportunity to attend many events, including when I brought my family from Cardiff to see it for the first time, and they were absolutely delighted. The success of this museum has been even more admirable in our 850th year. But does the leader agree with me that this is indeed a fantastic place, and with the new extension and art gallery space, it has come into its own as a place to celebrate the cultural history of a loyal and ancient borough?
Thank you, Councillor Panther. Councillor Bentley-Smith, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was concerned at the scrutiny committee about sickness absence. as you know, Mr. Mayor, and I think Councillor Fear and one or two others, I work in the voluntary sector, strangely on steam locomotives and things like that. And we're actually seeing in the voluntary sector quality tasks like driving steam engines and things like that. We're seeing absences that are having to be covered and so forth. So it's happening in the voluntary sector. We're seeing it also in the local authority sector. And when you look at the statistics, they're not entirely comparable because, for instance, here in Newcastle-under-Lyme, we've got a manual workforce, and not all of the authorities that we're comparing with have a manual workforce. And where you have that situation, you will get a different pattern of absence. But in asking the questions, hard questions at the scrutiny committee, I was very impressed with the actions that are being taken by officers in looking to address this. And we've asked for a report as to the response that we look at the scrutiny committee. But I would just wish to ask the leader to agree with me that we are taking this matter of sickness very seriously indeed. We're not out of line with what's happening in other local authority sectors, the voluntary sector and elsewhere. And could he confirm that he's content with the action being taken? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bentley-Smith. Councillor Simon Tagg, would you like to respond, please?
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Pounter, for the comments on the museum. I share them completely and think it's a great asset for the borough, even more so now we've got the extension and the extra art space, as you pointed out. And I think this year has really been for the museum to come into its own, the 850th anniversary. I think the challenge for us all and for the museum team is to ensure that continues into the future with the talks that they have, the displays they put on, the art and the lovely shop and cafe, which has gone from strength to strength, hasn't it, as well, which is really great. If you want a cup of tea and lemon drizzle cake, which is always something I think you should have at a museum, you can get that at the museum with the caterers there. So really pleased with that. Thank you, Councillor Bentley-Smith, for the comments on sickness and for what you said also at the scrutiny committee. I think you're quite right. It is a national issue affecting all sectors, but I think, as you can see in the wording there, and also from the report that went to scrutiny and the next one, which will provide a more detailed one for scrutiny to look at, that we're doing all that we can. I think we talked about the pandemic already, haven't we, and the lockdowns and the results of those. And we're still seeing the results of those in the health service, particularly with those delays, which are affecting some of our staff that need to go for treatment so we can get them back and fit and back into work. And I think one of the things that we listen to our unions very closely, and at our last meeting with the unions, they did put forward the idea of the council perhaps intervening and sending some of the more long-term staff who are waiting for sickness staff that are waiting for operations, whether we could send them to higher up the list through a private appointment or something, and that would help us to get them back into work, and also for them, those staff with long-term problems, to get those resolved as well, which is really key. So thank you, Councillor Bentley-Smith, and look out for the report that comes to scrutiny, which will be more detailed and hopefully will give you even more information on the council's response. And just to answer your final question, I'm content with what we're doing on this, and I hopefully we'll see some results in sickness absence levels reducing in the next few quarters. Thank you.
Members, paragraph 7 is about the corporate peer challenge outcome and action plan. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 7, please? No. Members, paragraph 8 is about the forward plan. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 8, please? No. Members, that concludes the leader's statement. We'll now move on to the next item of business. Members, the next item of business is the report of the chairs of the scrutiny committees. This is agenda item 10, which is at page 65 of your agenda. Reports are attached for the Health, Wellbeing and Environment Scrutiny Committee and the Economical and Place Scrutiny Committee. A verbal update will be given for the Finance, Assets and Performance Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Mark Holland, would you give your update, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the committee met on the 26th of June, as was mentioned by the leader in his statement. We have commissioned a more detailed report about sickness absence, which we'll consider at our next meeting on the 25th of September. Everyone will be very welcome if they wish to attend.
These reports are here for information and noting. Please, can the reports be received, please? Thank you. Members, the next substantive item of business is the reports of the chairs and the regulatory committees. This is agenda item 11. The reports can be found on page 67 to 69 of your main agenda and page 13 of your supplementary agenda. Written reports are attached for the Licensing and Public Protection Committee and the Audit and Standards Committee. A verbal update will be given for the Planning Committee. Councillor Paul Northcott, would you give your update, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The committee has met 3 times since April, namely on the 23rd of May, 20th of June and 18th of July. I'll take one by one. The 23rd of May was a light agenda, only included 3 items in the main, which included things like changes of use, namely to 23 to 25 Merrill Street, to include circus and arts workshop and heritage exhibition area. The other item that was also on there that was of note was the award of the historic buildings grant to Betley Court for their renovations, and mainly almshouses. So Madeley and Betley have done well, and I wish them well in the fulfillment of the renovations. The 20th of June meeting was a totally different affair. It was much heavier, with 6 major and 1 minor applications. The first 2 applications concern mainly Section 106 agreements attached to York Place, for example, and also the Chatterley Valley development site in Newcastle. The main substantive item which caused quite a bit of debate was the 2 applications that were coming in for 1 London Road. The first one considered a change of condition 1 from occupations to allow not only students but 200 hospital workers from the Royal Stoke and University Hospital only. Members gave that quite considerable debate, as they did the application that came following it, with the removal of some of the parking spaces, which we were subsequently informed that the 18th of July had to be amended. The information wasn't that accurate. Moving on to the 18th of July agenda, that was more of an even evening. 4 major development applications were on the table. This included yet again 1 London Road. This time the consensus was to talk about the previous permission and to look at the floor plans, roof and elevation of the previous plan that had been approved. 2 other items that came in were the discharge of Schedule 17 of the Act, which allows HS2 to work along its section of rail. That's been approved, and this concerned Whitmore Woods and Madeley, which were approved unanimously by the committee. There was agreement to keep the land at Doddlespool, Bedley, on the 2 monthly agenda items to remain on the agenda because no substantive report had been forthcoming on that. Other items of business included the committee were asked to endorse the updated local enforcement plan 2023, and that was also agreed. Dates for site visit for this calendar year 2023 and 24, which has to be laid out by the committee, was also considered, debated and approved. That, Chair, is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Northcott. These reports are here for information and noting. Please can the reports be received, please? Thank you. Members, the next substantive item of business is motions of members. A copy of the motion concerning fire appliance crewing can be found on pages 71 and 72 of your agenda. A briefing note has been provided by the Chief Fire Officer and is on your tables. The motion has been proposed by Councillor Mike Stubbs and seconded by Councillor Wendy Brockey. Councillor Stubbs, would you like to speak on your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a point of order, the briefing notes from the Deputy
Right.
Chief.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In Councillor Jones's absence, it's my pleasure to present the motion, no to three-person crewing. The Staffordshire Commissioner, a role currently held by Bad Adams, published a document entitled the Fire and Rescue Plan 2021 to 2024, which strived to put 4 key areas as its priorities: that of a flexible and responsive service, to protect people and places, help people most at risk stay safe, and a fire and rescue service for tomorrow. All laudable priorities. But sadly, this vision has failed to materialise, with Wendy Williams, His Majesty's Inspector of Fire and Rescue Services, being quoted as saying, "Some behaviours in the service, which are not in line with the service's values, are having a detrimental effect on staff. Response standards and the availability of its fire engines have got worse, and the service isn't sure it has identified all of its high-risk premises. The service also doesn't use its workforce in the most efficient way to make sure that work is appropriately directed to the risks and priorities identified in the integrated risk management plan." The inspector also stated that efficiency within the service required improvement, as well as a failure to look after its people also needing improvement. The number of firefighters in Staffordshire per 1,000 of the population is below the national average, as well as a reduction in workforce numbers of over 50% in the last 10 years. This is against a national average of 5% or a 1 in 20 reduction nationwide over the last 5 years. On a personal level, the residents of Talkenbutt Lane and indeed the wider parish of Kisgrove have historically enjoyed the protection of a whole-time fire station, as indeed the residents of Newcastle continue to do so. But alas, Kisgrove has now been devalued in the eyes of the Commissioner, withdrawing full-time firefighters, replacing them with local heroes in the form of retained firefighters, with a smaller number of appliances at their disposal. How this is a move to provide any of the 4 stated priorities is beyond me. As recently as the 3rd of July this year, the Commissioner has sought to sweep the concerns of the Inspectorate aside through his annual report, which was presented to Staffordshire Police Fire and Crime Panel. But thankfully, the failings of the Commissioner's office, as well as projects being undertaken by that office without proper scrutiny, were highlighted. The
Councillor Stubbs.
The Commissioner was quoted as saying, "I'm very pleased to report, in the main, it is entirely safe." Councillor Fearmont will join me in the horror at that statement, setting aside that something in the main cannot therefore be entirely safe. The failure of the Commissioner's office to recruit the required number of firefighters is now directly placing both our residents and firefighters in harm's way. Nationally, an absolute minimum of crew of 4 is sacrosanct, and I would hope it's obvious to every councillor in this room that they would not support any extension of the current project in the south of the county that has already been thrown out by several other fire authorities across both the south and west of Yorkshire, amongst 2. In closing, Mr. Mayor, I'll finish on that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Councillor Brockey, would you like to second the motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to second this motion, given the risks to and the serious concerns of our residents about the proposed changes in the crewing and response model. Given the lack of information council has been given, I consider that applying scrutiny on behalf of this council and our communities is both pragmatic and desperately needed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Stubbs, would you like to sum up, please? Oh, we have to debate, so I do apologise. Are there any other members wishing to speak, please? Councillor Sweeney and Councillor Cook. Councillor Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm obviously going to oppose this motion, and I'll go into detail as to why. If it was real, it would go to the Police, Fire and Crime Panel. A specific role of the panel is to scrutinise the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner to promote openness in the transaction of the police and fire and rescue. The very fact that you're bringing it here shows, I'd be unkind about this, but you're playing games, really, aren't you? This trial started on June the 1st. I can't say I've noticed a change in those 2 months. It's not in the south of the borough, it's across the whole south of the county, it's across the whole of the county. This trial is. It seems to me morally wrong that the Fire and Rescue Service is getting attacked by this council, well, by the Labour group, when they're not here to defend themselves. It just doesn't seem right. This whole thing is nothing to do with full-time firefighters. It's simply the part-time firefighters. Now, when I was a lot younger than I am now, I used to be in the Territorial Army. And the Territorial Army had two problems, really. It had people coming through the door to join. It struggled with that, and it struggled with keeping them when they joined. And the retained service, which is, in the day, a part-time firefighters, has the same problem. It has a problem with recruitment, and it's a problem with keeping the recruits when they're taken on strength. This isn't a Newcastle problem. It's not a Staffordshire problem. It's a nationwide problem. The idea just that it's Staffordshire is fatuous nonsense, to be honest with you. The way the system works at the moment, as far as I know, and I'm not in the fire service, I'm not an expert on these things. I don't profess to be. But you join as retained firefighter, you're trained, and when you're trained as a firefighter, then you then give the hours when you're prepared to go on call as retained firefighter. So you might do 5 till 10, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or something like that. And you get an element of money, you get a bit of a retainer for that. Perhaps that's why they're called retained firefighters, I don't know. And then when there's a fire and you get called out, you get paid, I assume, but I say I'm not in the defending the fire service because I don't know. I assume you get paid the rate of a full-time firefighter for when, you know. Now, the Labour Party is saying terrible things about having three retained firefighters on a crew. Remember, this is the way these responses are done. They'll only go to certain incidents. And for example, if I'm in a car crash and my airway is blocked and I need somebody to come and move my head and clear my airway, I can't say I'm bothered if it's 3 people or 4 people on the appliance. I'd really just want to live. And I think that's perhaps the salient thing. The attending officers are pleased with this approach, as they're now being mobilised to incidents where they can make an intervention and add value to their communities. The report on this trial was prepared by the Chief Fire Officer and his deputy, that's Rob Barber and Glyn Illusionary, as I'm sure you both know. They're both experienced professional officers, and I know them both very well. I must admit, I give more weight to what they say than Councillor Stubbs, who I don't really know what Councillor Stubbs does for a living, but I don't think he's ever been a firefighter. And Councillor Brocky, she's retired, isn't she, Councillor Brocky? But I doubt if she's ever been a firefighter. So personally, I give more credence to the Chief Fire Officer and his deputy.
1 minute, Councillor Sweeney.
Okay, I'll speed up a bit. The first version had Councillor Fox-Hewitt's name on it. It seems to have changed now. I wonder, is this the start of his bid to try to be the new PCFC next year? Or is he another person to lead the sinking ship of the Newcastle Labour group? You know, I don't know. I also know that the Health, Wellbeing and Environment Scrutiny Committee meets on September the 7th. The Chief Fire Officer and his deputy, as well as the station manager of Newcastle, are attending. And that will surely be the ideal time to put these questions to, so they can actually answer them rather than having a third party talking on their behalf. To sum up, this means that firefighters will arrive at incidents quicker than before, and therefore they're able to make faster interventions, which will improve the safety of the public and other emergency workers who will also be responding. And also, importantly, the public are receiving a fast response in their time of need. I really haven't got a problem with that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to move this.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to back up what Councillor Sweeney said there, Councillor Wilk isn't here, but as the Deputy Chair of the Health, Wellbeing and Environment Committee, yes, we have the Chief Fire Officer coming on the agenda to our next meeting, and that might be a more appropriate place to raise some of these concerns. And then hear from the fire service as to why they're making these decisions, because at the moment they're not here, as Councillor Sweeney said, to defend themselves and explain why. I think that would be a more appropriate place to raise this. And then we can hear directly from them. And hopefully you can point out some of the positives in the changes and why they're doing this.
Thank you, Councillor Fox-Hewitt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do need to declare an interest on this in that I work for the Fire Brigade Union and I have served for more than 20 years in the Fire and Rescue Service. I'll start by saying I'm surprised to yet again receive a paper on the table on the arrival to council tonight. I note that this report that we've been provided makes no comment on the reductions in staff, the most of any UK Fire and Rescue Service, or the current attendance times achieved by the service. Both of those issues merit answers. Now, having briefly read the report in the time we were given, there are a number of issues that are presented. The second paragraph says that this has gone live following extensive consultation with our workforce. Well, on that point, let's be clear, no consultations taken place with the public as required in the IRMP under the Fire and Rescue Services Act. That's number one. Consultation with our workforce. The workforce and their representative bodies have not agreed or supported this trial. That's number two. The third issue is, it says they've consulted other fire and rescue services. Well, I can speak with some authority, unlike Councillor Sweeney on this, and the other fire and rescue services that respond with 3 firefighters that I'm aware of do so to a very restricted and limited number of incidents, and for good reason. And those incidents are things like lock-ins, lockouts, lift rescues, pumping out from houses, and small secondary fires and bin fires. Most certainly not building fires and road traffic collisions, as stated in the report. Now, I will say the comments from Councillor Sweeney and the ignorance shown, quite frankly, when he says it has nothing to do with whole-time firefighters, just retained firefighters. Well, let me be clear, part-time retained firefighters' safety should not be any less, and they deserve to go home to their families at the end of a period of duty, just like their colleagues in the full-time service. So therefore, you know, given the issues, given the lack of consultation, given the failure to the report to address the concerns, I think this motion is entirely reasonable and appropriate. And the PFCC, the Police, Fire and Crime Commission and the Chief Officer should attend a relevant scrutiny committee to take questions on their response model and proposals. You know, that's exactly the reason, Chair, this council exists. And it's exactly the reason that we as representatives in this room are elected, to ensure the health, safety and well-being of residents. So I don't understand the, quite frankly, misguided opposition to a motion that simply says we haven't had information and we'd like to invite them to a scrutiny committee. I think it's crazy, and I think shame on anyone that votes against what is a reasonable request. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Heason.
Thank you. As a member of the Police, Fire and Crime panel, I agree with Councillor Sweeney that the correct place for this to be considered is at the Police, Fire and Crime panel, where the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, Ben Adams, makes himself available to answer questions such as this. However, there is a meeting of the Health, Wellbeing and Environmental Scrutiny Committee on the 7th of September here at Castle House. The Chief Fire Officer, Rob Barber, as well as the Station Manager at Newcastle, Andy Bourne, will be attending. They can discuss this at that time and have the opportunity to respond. Councillors who sit on this scrutiny committee will also have the opportunity to ask questions.
Thank you, Councillor Heason. Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I read the motion and a couple of the questions later on in the agenda from Councillor Stubbs, I was put in mind of the sign that appeared a couple of years ago on land in Sedgley. It said 3 alien abductions here in the last week. When is the council going to do something? I'm not sure whether the Labour Party has fully understood that the council is not responsible for some of the things that they raise here. Since 2011, since the Localism Act, whether you like it or not, we have had directly elected police and crime commissioners, and in the case of Staffordshire, a police, crime and fire commissioner. So there isn't a fire authority anymore. Our councillors don't have direct responsibility. So with respect, it is not a properly formed request. This is not a body that can properly deal with the subject of the motion. But I do note, as other councillors have pointed out, They are going to get, the proposer and seconder of this motion, half of what they would like, because representatives of the fire authority will be in attendance at the next scrutiny committee, and it will be appropriate then to ask them some of the questions and to raise the very important issues that form the substance of the motion. I move that the motion now be put, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Tagg, did you want to speak?
Second that the motion be put. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And then I'll speak to, are we just summing up stage now?
We've got two more, I think, with Councillor
well,
Fear. Councillor. Oh, sorry. Right. Okay. Yes.
Okay. So I think Councillor Sweeney has hit it on the head with this, really. I think it's, I see the document from the Deputy Chief Fire Officer, which is sent on behalf of the Chief Fire Officer. And I think, you know, I'm reading it not as a professional firefighter, not as a person that knows so much about this, but I trust the word of the people that have sent this document. And just to respond to Councillor Fox-Hewitt saying this is the second time we've had a paper on the table when the motion has been put forward. Well, perhaps, as with the Spire motion, perhaps the correct route would have been to take it to the appropriate people to start with, like when we had the Aspire motion, take it to the Chief Executive and the Board of Aspire first. Well, and as Councillor Heatham has said, taking this to the Police and Crime and Fire panel, which I believe takes public questions. Yeah, and the public can attend. So you don't have to be a member of it. So I think we have this on the table because, yet again, an authority outside this council has felt the need to put in a written submission against a Labour motion that it doesn't agree with. And I think that's enough for me again. I think when I read through this document, I can see what they're trying to achieve here. I spent a few years on the fire authority back in the day, and I know that the individuals concerned would not put the safety of people in Staffordshire at risk. I think, if anything, as Councillor Sweeney's pointed out, they're actually heightening the safety of people by getting teams that wouldn't be able to go out to an incident by sending 3 instead of waiting for 4 and then not going out if there isn't 4. So I think it's a sensible approach. It's a trial. I think that feedback from it is really key. And of course, this motion hasn't triggered the fire service coming to scrutiny. That was already on the books, and that came out of the portfolio holder, Jill Heatham, myself and Stephen Sweeney, meeting the fire chief and the Newcastle station head a few months ago, and we wanted them to become more involved in our scrutiny process, which they jumped at the chance, and they were down to come to September. So I think moving to we moved to the vote, and my group will be opposing this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Can we vote on the proposal that the question
Point of order,
be put,
Mr. Mayor.
please?
You've not followed the procedures that are
I
laid
am-
down. No, you haven't. I have the right to sum up, and you've jumped over it. Yes, it's in the Constitution.
I will let you sum up, Councillor Stubbs, without
Well, you
shouting
won't let
out
me.
too
The
loud.
Constitution will let me,
Councillor
Mr. Mayor.
Stubbs, would you like to actually sum up, please, then?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
You shouldn't have to raise a point of order to do it, though.
Well, you don't have to. Carry on.
Just to sum up what's been said, I think some of my colleagues, I hope that they never actually are involved in an accident or actually in a burning building, because some of the ignorance that has been levelled tonight is beyond reprehension. Councillor Holland mentioned that this was the wrong place to be. I'm sorry, my residents have got every right to ask me, and therefore this council, to call before them the people that they've asked for. What is the morbid fear of scrutiny within this room? At any time somebody is requested to come here, they said no. Going back to Councillor Sweeney, I think Councillor Sweeney got into a bit of a muddle halfway through, because he wants us to go to Stafford, listen to it there, but then he doesn't like us having to go at them because they're not here to defend themselves. Which does he want? Does he want to bring them here, or do we all need to travel down there? And to do, no, you haven't bought the people that we've asked at all. No, you're bringing one, and the other one's hiding. Okay. Political games was mentioned. I don't believe in that whole side of A4 of 550 words I mentioned the Conservatives once. I don't believe that I mentioned the fire brigade, or should I say the fire authority, once. I was targeting my words very much at the Commissioner's office, and any attempt to smear me attacking firefighters is equally as disgusting. Mr. Mayor, all we've asked for tonight is for two simple things: that we as one voice say that 3 firefighters attending the scene is not safe. And anybody who says it is hasn't read the strategy that was published nationally. And the second one is, it is not beyond anything to ask 2 individuals to come to this council to explain something that will have major consequences for all of our residents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Can we vote on the proposal that the question be put, please? All those in favour? The question. Thank you. All those against? Fine. So we're voting the motion now. Now can we vote on the motion, please? All those in favour? All those against? It's 14 and 21. The motion is passed. Lost, sorry. God in heavens. Members, the next item agenda is item 13. Members, questions. I have received 2 questions for the leader and cabinet members. These can be found on pages 15 to 17 of your supplementary agenda. I will ask members to read out their question, after which I will ask the leader or the relevant cabinet member to respond. The member asking the question may then ask a supplementary question. Could I remind members that if they have a supplementary question, it must be a question and not a statement, and it must concise, focused and relate to the subject matter of the initial answer and question. The first question is from Councillor Richard Gorton regarding bus services. Councillor Gorton, your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The publication of the draft local plan, which highlights the importance of residents having access to public transport, coincided with the decision by First to axe the bus service between Audley and Hanley. The frequency of services on other routes has also been reduced. Does the leader of the council agree that the time is right to A, reconsider the current arrangements for operating bus services across the borough, B, for the Borough Council to work with the City Council and other authorities across Staffordshire to put in place a new structure for providing bus services, which could involve services being run by new bus operators?
Thank you, Councillor Gorton. Councillor Simon Tagg, your response, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Gorton, for the question. I think you're referring to, is it the Route 7, which obviously came through Audley, which I believe has latterly been picked up by D&G, hasn't it, as well? But I know, and I'm sure Councillor Gorton will know, when D&G do step in for first, when they vacate a route, often that's not sustainable in the longer term, and then we lose the route. I can remember the number 17 that used to go through most of the eastern side of the borough, and that was obviously revived by D&G, thankfully, for a year or so, and then disappeared. But I think, obviously, as a borough council, as Councillor Gorton will know, we don't have any specific powers around bus services, but we do feed into the county-wide policies on that. And the government have brought forward their national bus strategy, which is asking the county councils and all councils of the highway authorities and the transport authorities to set up enhanced partnerships with the bus and services and bring forward an improvement plan. And they're putting some money behind that as well. The city have got one too. And I think I'm really in favour of that. I supported it at the county council when it came to cabinet there. And I think we've all seen bus services that we've lost in our local area. And I think it's really, the onus is also on the bus operators to ensure they provide a decent bus service, a clean, efficient bus service, and also advertise them properly so we can keep bus services going and get people and at the right times for people when they need to use bus services. I think through this enhanced bus partnership and part of the improvement plan, we can hope to do that. As for working with others, the city and the county and other authorities. We do that through what we do with the county at the moment through the Leaders Board, and we're looking to put in a bid to government for a devolved powers, and one of them could be around the area of transport. And I think what we're looking to do now is to get the new leadership at the City Council to become part of the Leaders Board, and then there could be a North Staffordshire bid for transport improvement, which could include for bus services for cross-conurbation travel, which is not good at the moment, and with the less and less buses, it becomes even less good for our residents. So I think that's the way forward, Councillor Gorton, and hopefully you'll support us if we do, move down the route of trying to get more powers locally through a Staffordshire Leaders Board with the city to bring money and powers in, so we can begin to change some of the bus services and improve them for the local people.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Gorton, do you have a supplementary? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gorton and Councillor Tagg. The next question is from Councillor Joel Edgecombe-Plunkett regarding the recycling and waste service.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the leader's statement, it expresses that the administration will continue to improve the recycling and waste service. Can the portfolio holder for a sustainable environment please tell the residents and members what his action plan will be to improve this service? It also states that agency staff will be employed to help with the service. Can the portfolio holder also inform members how many agency staff will be employed, how much this is costing the council, and how many colleagues in the waste and recycling services are currently off on long-term sickness?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hutchins, then your response, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to thank Councillor Edgerton-Plunkett for his question and his interest in the sustainable environment portfolio. First, let me acknowledge the great effort put in by the waste and recycling teams, delivering for residents year round and in all sorts of weather, including the dreadful weather that we've had today. This is a physically demanding job, and increasingly we have an aging workforce. Currently, we have 7 staff from the service off on long-term sick leave, out of a workforce of approximately 77 drivers and loaders. As with other councils, we are seeing pressures in the NHS leading to appointments being cancelled. This delays actions to help staff back into work. Against this backdrop, short-term sickness can cause temporary service disruption, which the team work hard to quickly resolve. In terms of strengthening our resilience, we are increasing the driver-loader team posts without growing the overall size of the workforce. This would mean a member of staff could be a driver or a loader. This is to cover levels of absence and annual leave. We have recently recruited 4 new drivers, 3 of which have already started, and we are advertising from 4 more in the coming weeks, as we are aware that several staff are taking time off soon for scheduled operations. I am in constant contact with the officers. I received an update from an officer this afternoon which said the service is running close to normal this week. We have 3 new drivers at the moment who are steadily getting up to speed, and they're doing really well. Longer term, we are in the process of developing a workforce strategy to attract younger people into the industry, linking this to our career progression opportunities so that we can be seen as an attractive employer. Members will be aware that the garden waste service is seasonal in nature, with general tonnage of waste being collected in the summer than in the winter. Additionally, responsive to need, agency staff are brought into the service as required to cover for absences, including annual leave. This flexible use of agency staff is the most efficient way to manage the variation in resourcing, rather than to provide a constant pool of additional staff, which would in effect be overstaffing. Wherever possible, we flex our internal resource ahead of bringing in agency staff in order to minimize the cost of agency workers. Based on historic spend, the aggregate value for agency staff will be in the region of 212,000 per year. This sounds a lot, but is less than the 300,000 plus a year we were spending on agency staff when we had the previous recycling system with the blue, red and green tubs that was hated by all our residents. But the 212,000 yearly figure for agency staff might fluctuate based on the ongoing need to supply appropriate cover for each of the services. We are also in the process of an agency framework review, which will standardise rates and maintain strong governance in terms of training and induction. We continue to invest in time and training, have a number of staff working towards apprentice level qualifications.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchinson. Councillor Edgerton-Plunkett, do you have a supplementary question, please?
I certainly do. Given the above issues with staffing, does the portfolio holder think the leader's actions of crashing industrial relations, resulting in staff undertaking a consultative ballot for industrial action, is going to add to recent issues with waste and recycling?
Thank you, Councillor Plunkett. Councillor Hutchinson, your response, please.
If it's fine with you, Mr. Mayor, I'll pass that question to the leader.
Okay. Councillor Tagg? No. We will do a written reply. Thank you very much. The next question is from Councillor Joe Edgerton-Plunkett regarding J2. Councillor Edgerton-Plunkett, your question, please.
This question's already been answered previously, so please can I withdraw it?
Thank you very much. The next question is from Councillor Amy Bryan regarding the outturn for 2022 to 2023. Councillor Bryan, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr.
There we go.
Mayor.
Sorry, darling.
Okay. I note that the outturn for 2022-23 shows a favourable variance of 8,000 against the budget. Given the financial pressures that the council is under, how did you achieve such a positive outcome?
Thank you, Councillor Bryan. Councillor Stevens-Tweeney, your response, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Bryan. What an excellent question. The response, yeah, the actual and forecast position compared to the budget set in February 2022 is continuously monitored by the finance team, corporate leadership team, and the portfolio holder, i.e. me, in order to detect any significant variance of expenditure or income from the improved amounts. Proper corrective actions have been undertaken to ensure the council delivered a balanced budget position for the financial year 22-23. These include utilisation of the cost of living reserve that was established during the budget setting for 22-23 in order to respond to any above inflationary increases in costs. The 400,000 paid into reserve will be fully used. Second one, use of 240,000 new homes bonus funding paid to the budget support fund, which was established during the budget setting for 22-23 in order to boost the council's financial resilience during 22-23 as a result of the continued impact of the coronavirus pandemic. A third one, application of £167,000 administration grant paid to the council and set aside during 21-22 in relation to coronavirus grants, and a further £111,000 grant received in relation to the administration of council tax rebate grants received during 22-23. Fourth, a refund of £130,000 is payable to the council in respect of business rates payable in relation to the museum following a backdated revaluation in rateable value. Fifth one, interest receivable on cash that the council holds in terms of town deal and future high street funding, together with Section 31 grant and remaining coronavirus grant funding that are repayable to central government, has increased significantly following recent interest rate hikes to £578,000 for the financial year. This also eliminated the need for any in-year borrowing to be undertaken, saving £120,000 in interest payments. The levy payments payable to the business rates pool that the council is a part of is £141,000, less than estimated for 2022-23. Additionally, the levy payable in relation to 21-22 has been met from the business rates reserves of £116,000. That gives you a brief rundown. I think is absolutely fascinating personally, and the tremendous job by the finance team. But we've got more to follow later on, and it's going to be a good one later on. So all thanks to Councillor Stubbs. You'll be here for a good while tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Bryan, do you have a supplementary?
I do, yes.
Thank you.
If that's okay. How confident are you of this strong financial management continuing into the current and future years? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again, Councillor Bryan. I'm obviously very confident. The recent peer review spoke glowingly about the council's financial planning and management, specifically in terms of, now you might have noticed I didn't say anything during the peer review thing. That's because of this. Strong financial leadership and overall financial management with recognition of financial pressures and challenges. Our finances being both healthy and actively managed, putting us in a stable position. A robust process being in place for identifying budget proposals with significant involvement of key staff and members in developing these. Opportunities being considered on how to close further future revenue budget gaps as part of the efficiency board process. Significant additional funding that has been secured for the regeneration of the borough, £51 million, with successful partnership working arrangements in place to support the delivery of the key projects. The One Council Transformation Programme, which is on track to deliver recurring savings of £1 million per annum. And the council continues to look at opportunities to extract further external funding. Not my words, the words of the peer review team. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, if you want, John, you can have a copy of it if you want.
The next question is from Councillor Jacqueline Brown regarding Love Parks. Councillor Brown, your question, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This year, Love Your Parks Week runs from the 28th of July to the 6th of August. This annual campaign celebrates parks, green spaces, and the dedicated volunteers and workers that look after them all year round. These vibrant living spaces bring communities together and provide an opportunity to connect with nature in the heart of our cities, towns, and neighbourhoods. Now, this evening, I believe the portfolio holder isn't present, but perhaps the leader in her absence could provide the council with an update and explanation as to why the council has decided not to support this initiative this year.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Simon Tagg, your response, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the question. The council continues to support such things as Love Parks Week and other initiatives that take place to enable our communities to become actively involved in green spaces and looking after their neighbourhoods. Support and advice is also made available to community groups that want to hold events on their local green spaces and carry out projects to improve them. We see that through Britain in Bloom, which is an ongoing yearly thing and comes to a crescendo at this time of year, and also in the awards session for our community gardeners later in the year. And also, I think we see with the tree planting that we're doing in our carbon capture areas, those 60 green spaces that we've protected. I know in my ward, we've had residents coming out and helping to plant the trees, and even community groups investing in chairs and benches on the community spaces, all working towards loving their local park. Even though the council hasn't this organised a specific event for Love Parks Week, we still supported and committed to supporting our communities in loving their parks, and also putting on any events they wish to do so, alongside other initiatives aimed at promoting a healthy lifestyle and access to those precious green spaces, which we as a council have protected 60 of them in the urban areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Brown, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, please. What can I tell my residents that you're doing then in the Parade Park for Love Your Parks Week?
I would ask them to, and perhaps you as a local councillor could get in touch with our team that do our parks maintenance and parks promotion, and part of the Britain in Bloom team, to actually ask what they can do and you can do to help, and what they can do to actually put on an event themselves or be supported by the council in doing so. So I think if you could speak to Andrew Bird, our officer, or Roger Tate, either one of those will help put you in the right direction on how we can make the best use of obviously that community spirit around that park to bring off an event to show that they love their park like we love all our local parks. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Councillor Mike Stubbs regarding household disposable income. Councillor Stubbs, your question, please.
Look, Council. Mr. Mayor, the Office of Budget Responsibility has predicted that the real household disposable income, the measure of real living standards in the UK per person, is expected to fall by a cumulative 5.7% over the next 2 financial years. Would the portfolio holder for finance update us how the Borough Council will step in to protect the most vulnerable here in the borough, who are facing the biggest 2-year fall since records began in 1956-57?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sweeney, your response, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like I pointed out before, if you'd given these a while ago, we could have done this out of this chamber, but this is going to go for a while, so we might as well enjoy it while we're here. The Office for Budget Responsibility is often wrong, and it should be borne in mind that any forecast is rarely completely accurate. For example, in 2021, the OBR predicted that inflation would remain below 2%. until 2025. Immediately prior to the war in Ukraine, UK inflation was at 5.5% and it peaked at above 10%. Last autumn, the OBR forecast the UK economy would enter a recession. It has not. The OBR's own executive economist, David Miles, has stated that the OBR central forecaster almost guaranteed to be wrong and that people shouldn't get too hung up on them. He's right. Forecasts in the OBR are a warning to government and not a prediction or a prophecy. Thanks to measures announced at the spring budget, the OBR's forecast 2023 recession has melted away. It is now necessary for the government to follow its economic plan to ensure that living standards continue to rise in the UK. The government is protecting the most vulnerable with a £94 billion package of cost of living support worth £3,300 per household. The council continues to passport funding out to residents and businesses within the borough, which includes 1.184 million of energy rebates distributed to households within the borough to assist with higher than expected global energy prices. A further 108,000 has been distributed to households under the Alternative Fuels Payment Scheme to assist with rising energy bills. 111,000 has been applied to 4,560 residents' council tax accounts during 23-24 to assist those most in need, and a further 111,000 will be applied during the second half of the year. Over 7.6 million has been awarded to date over the last 10 years under the council's council tax reduction scheme, which aims to support pensions, the vulnerable and working age benefit claimants within the borough. The council continues to provide a significantly below inflation council tax rise. In addition to these, at the autumn statement on 17th November 2022, the Chancellor announced the introduction of a new business rates relief scheme for retail, hospitality and leisure properties worth around £2 billion in 23-24. This will support the businesses that make our high streets and town centres a success, help them to evolve and adapt to changing consumer demands. The 23-24 Retail, Hospitality and Leisure Business Rates Relief Grant provides eligible occupied retail, hospitality and leisure properties with a 75% relief up to a cash limit of £110,000 per business. So this financial year, rate relief of 2.393 million has been awarded to eligible ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Stubbs, do you have a supplementary question, please?
I do, Mr. Mayor. So the answer to the question is don't believe experts. Okay, that worked really well over the last 4 years. Given the 5% cut equates to a real-time cash fall of £1,841 for every household, and that there are circa 52,800 houses in Newcastle-under-Lyme, can the portfolio holder update us how the 97.2 million, I think he's just given me about 1.5 million of that, the 97.2 million, which has been withdrawn from the local economy, will affect not only the businesses within the borough, but how the shrinking of the local economy will directly impact the budget setting here at Newcastle Borough Council?
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Councillor Sweeney, your response, please.
Yeah, thank you again, Mr. Mayor. The government is protecting the most vulnerable with a £94 billion package of cost of living support worth £3,300 on average per household. Doesn't that answer your question? We'll make sure people get it. We'll get it through as quickly as we can, like we have with all the other schemes we put in.
Right, can we move on, please? The next question is from Councillor Mike Stubbs regarding the economical.
I sleep so much better with the portfolio holder. Nationally, the Conservative government have crashed the economy, leaving Newcastle residents to pick up the pieces. Does the portfolio holder for finance agree with the Prime Minister that residents in Torkenbutt Lane and residents across the borough should hold their nerve when it comes to rising interest rates and stubborn inflation? Or does he agree with me that the Prime Minister is simply out of touch?
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Councillor Sweeney, your response, please.
Dear, yeah. Right. Okay. Councillor Stubbs is mistaken. Since 2010, the UK economy has grown faster than France, Italy and Japan. Since the Brexit referendum, we have grown at about the same rate as Germany and are currently outpacing Germany. In the last 2 years, the UK has had the fastest growth in the G7. The IMF has revised its 2023 forecast for the UK economy upwards by more than any other country, praising our decisive and responsible government. Our technology sector is only the third in the world to be valued at more than £1 trillion. The UK ranks third globally as a priority investment destination for CEOs. We lead Europe in securing foreign direct investment. Perhaps Councillor Stubbs should have revised the question he tabled a month ago. We're asking them. He will be aware that inflation is falling faster than predicted, and of course to meet the government's target of halving it by the end of the year. He will also know that interest rates are set independently of government by the Bank of England, thanks to Gordon Brown. Does Councillor Stubbs wish to end the independence of the Bank of England? Does he support the Labour Party's £98,000 million in uncosted national spending that would mean more borrowing and higher inflation in future? Residents across the borough have seen through a Labour Party that presided over dither and drift, cuts and closures and vacillation when they ran the council. They will be disappointed that leading figures from those dark, gloomy days have nothing to offer today but sound bites and attacks on national government.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Stubbs, do you have a supplementary question, please?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Research by the Resolution Foundation suggests that 3,774 households right here in Newcastle face a Tory mortgage penalty of £2,300 per year. Could the portfolio holder please inform the council where he thinks the residents already suffering from a cost of living crisis are expected to find the 8.7 million to cover increased mortgages, let alone anything else?
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Councillor Sweeney, your response, please.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. I'm possibly a little bit older than you. And I can remember when my mortgage was 15%. Not that long ago, really. I can remember that. And I think people are nodding their heads and saying they can remember that. What? No, in the 80s, it was in the 80s. What we had in 83. But once again, it's a bit like the fire service, isn't it? You're bringing things that aren't anything to do with this council. But you bring it here, you bring the fire service here. It's nothing to do with your bus service. We don't run buses. And you can't attack the council because it's such a well-run council. So you have to bring exterior things into it.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. The next question is from Councillor Mike Stubbs regarding child poverty. Councillor Stubbs, your question, please.
It's quite disturbing that they don't like scrutiny, Mr. Mayor. No, he doesn't. What looks like HQ Conservative answer the questions. End Child Poverty is an organisation that highlights the real impacts that poverty has on a daily basis for children across the UK. Would the portfolio holder care to comment on the latest figure for Newcastle-under-Lyme, suggesting that 7,829 children are currently living in abject poverty?
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Councillor Sweeney, your response, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Stubbs. And I'm very gracious in not giving me the obvious yes or no answer to this, so we'll carry on. It is regrettable that Councillor Stubbs seeks to sensationalise and embellish the claims of the campaigning group End Child Poverty, which nowhere in its literature or website refers to abject poverty. Inflammatory language does not promote a well-informed debate, and the councillor should know better as a regular critic of his local MP. He will also know that relative poverty, which is the metric calculated in the research he refers to, is a measure of income inequality and not of absolute poverty. I think every member of this council would agree that all children should grow up safe, healthy and cared for, with no limitations placed on their potential based on the circumstances of their birth. Efforts to reduce poverty are essential and continuing, and no government, national or local, would ever say otherwise. We believe the best way to lift families out of poverty and support living standards is through work, better skills and higher wages. That is why the Borough Council's corporate priorities include a successful and sustainable growing borough, and why this administration is bringing forward a local plan based on well-planned growth, attracting high-skill, high-wage jobs to our area, opening up opportunities for all of our residents. I know the government also puts those most in need of financial support first when it comes to financial support. This has been demonstrated time and again, first through the millions of families supported through the coronavirus pandemic, and then through the unprecedented cost of living support packages made available in response to the spike in energy costs following Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine. It is unclear what a Labour government would have done differently to make a meaningful difference to our lives of our local children. For example, will Councillor Stubbs condemn the policy of his own party leader, Sir Keir Starmer, who will not promise to end the government's two-child benefit cap, whose child poverty platform has been described by a government minister as a cut and paste of the government's line and led to him being nicknamed Kid Starver by rank and file Labour members?
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Stubbs, do you have a supplementary question, please?
I'm actually still waiting for me to answer the first question, but the supplementary.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. I'm sure the portfolio understands that poverty puts pressures on struggling families and undermines their ability to cope. So can I therefore ask how he and the wider administration have allowed the number of children in poverty to increase by 1,106 over the last 3 years, with a child poverty rate in Newcastle of 33%? How has this administration allowed 1 in 3 children here in Newcastle to fall into poverty?
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Councillor Sweeney, your response, please.
Yeah, I feel to a certain extent we're just going around in circles here, because I'll just go back to the money that this council has passported out to our residents in support, over £3,000 for every family. That's what we're doing about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. The final question is from Councillor Mike Stubbs regarding the weekly food shop. Councillor Stubbs, your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. According to the Office for National Statistics, somebody that they'll probably want to ignore, the average family in Newcastle-under-Lyme has seen the price of a weekly food shop rise by a staggering £700 per year. Given that there's an estimated 30,200 households within the borough that will be affected by this, that is a further 21.1 million being absorbed by struggling families with minimal help. Given this question, and indeed my previous questions, would the portfolio holder agree to join with me in writing to our local MPs to demand more support from the government that is currently failing our residents?
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Sorry, Councillor Sweeney, your response, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the short answer obviously is no. If Councillor Stubbs is seeking specific action from the administration on this important issue, he should bring a motion for all members to debate in the usual way. Inflation, as the councillor knows, is invidious. It erodes the means of all families in the borough and makes everything more costly for us as an authority too. Councillor Stubbs will also be able to make an educated guess as to the causes of food inflation in this country. When energy prices rose sharply in 2022, as a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the cost of producing, storing and transporting food shot up, along with domestic energy bills. Before the war, both Russia and Ukraine ranked among the top 3 global exporters of wheat, barley, maize, rapeseed and rapeseed oil, sunflower seed and sunflower oil. Short supply of these commodities has also pushed up prices on the global market. Councillor Stubbs refers to minimal help from the government to tackle the cost of living. Perhaps he missed the energy price guarantee capping utility bills, the £400 energy bill discount for all households with a meter, the £150 council tax rebate, the £650 cost of living payment for those on means-tested benefits, the £300 pensioner cost of living payments, the £150 payment for those on disability benefits, the £500 million household support fund to provide targeted discretionary support to exactly those low-income families who need that extra help, a 94,000 million package in total worth 3,300 on average per household. Like we're going around in circles because the same questions all the time, really. It is now essential the government does everything it can to reduce inflation, which is a single action that will most help the greatest number of people. I'm reassured that the government has made this a priority. Perhaps when Councillor Stubbs has written to our local MPs, he will next get in touch with the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of England, who will, I am certain, benefit from his keen passion and great fiscal expertise.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Stubbs, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. I didn't know it was not the government's fault. I didn't know it was the Bank of England's fault, so thank you for that. Mr. Mayor, falling living standards, including the 97.2 million being removed from the local economy, a mortgage penalty of 8.7 million, a third of our borough children in poverty, and a food bill that has increased by 21 million. Can I ask the portfolio holder if a preoccupation with vanity projects has come at a £127 million cost to the welfare of our residents in the loyal and ancient borough of Newcastle?
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Councillor Sweeney, your response, please.
No, it hasn't.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Members, agenda item 14 is our next item to receive petitions from members. I have not been made aware of any to be handed in this evening. Members, agenda item 15 and 16 relate to urgent business and confidential business. I have no urgent or confidential business that needs to be considered this evening. That therefore concludes the business for this meeting, and I therefore declare the meeting closed. Thank you.